Advisory Committee meeting. It's 7 o'clock and we're here at Town Hall to talk about budgets. So to begin with, we'd like to invite Donna Madden to come on up. Can you grab a chair? So,
Good evening, Donna.
thank you for coming.
Good evening, Randy.
So, Donna's here representing a lot of different, she's representing herself and then a lot of different budget items. So, how do you want to do this, Donna? Want to begin with your budget, the treasurer's budget?
Sure.
Why don't I just,
start with that
what I'll do is why don't I just sort of summarize what we have here?
Sure.
So, this is treasurer budget 145, Department 145, and the total requested for fiscal year 2015 is $161,045 compared to the approved budget in 2014 and 156,534. We see wages and salary have increased, represent $3,700 of the $4,500 increase, and then the other $800 spread in other items. So why don't you just, if you'd like, just start out with...
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt with a question so early, but why is advisory approved higher?
that is the COLA and adjustment. That's showing up there.
Okay,
So that's the difference.
okay.
So those are all in there now?
Everything's in. It all happened, actually. Sorry we were not here last week because of the snowstorm, but that all took place last week. Julie adjusted, and the total adjustment was, I think, around, was it 60,000? I think for salary. The adjustments for COLA have been applied 2% across the board. There's still departments that are in negotiation, but this is what we're doing at this point. And then everything was trued up. Julie reviewed all of the wages and salaries to make sure that steps were properly calculated and other year-end issues and days, number of days and all that stuff. So you can take comfort in the figure looking correctly.
Please, because she didn't break it out for me, so we have to write it.
So it wasn't just the overtime in the police, it was everything in the police?
Everything in police,
Okay.
she just had it lumped, and then I asked for a breakdown, and she gave me somewhat of a breakdown, but still not breakdown enough.
So we'll talk about that when they come.
Do we have
They're here tonight, so
do we have to vote on the COLA at some point?
I don't know. Have we done that in the past?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if it's,
We don't have to
Do
do
it.
it right now. Just-
do it now because I don't think it's solid.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying at some point in time we should formalize it's not always a given. We discuss and
Oh, you mean whether we're gonna,
Yeah.
okay, just apply the
to
COLA.
what we can
Okay.
sort of control.
Okay, gotcha.
The other ones are not negotiable.
Yeah, the union ones, but this will be on everything. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt.
That's
You think that you're here?
I know.
Presenting your
It's
budget.
going really well so far. Let's just keep it going. Are we on 9:16 now? Okay,
Time is up,
15
you're
minutes,
done, you're done. Okay, so starting all over, starting again. Where were we? Okay, so we're starting with 145, and I just summarized the difference in the budgets from 2014, 2015. So if you would like to start with salary and wages, the salary is you.
Sure, salary and wages, myself and Anachka, we each have a step. So that's the increase, and then, like you said, the 2% COLA.
Okay. And Nanaka's hours are the same as they have been in prior years? So that's-
Well, since last year when she went to 29, and that's working.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear how many hours?
29.
29.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on salary and wages?
No.
Okay, so moving on.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
5% overall increase because the step with a 2%.
Steps of 3%.
Oh, okay,
There's 2.7 before the
Okay.
2%.
okay.
Look good.
I got you then, all right.
Are you near the end of your step ladder, do you know?
I'm on 6 and Anachka's on 7.
how many is it, 10?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on?
Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. So, we and we can look that you're, fairly level funded,
Mhm.
but why don't we talk about some of the larger line items, software support, what's included there?
Software support is the Harper's payroll system, basically, the running of that. And actually, the 800, that's also, is that Vadar in there too, Julie?
Yeah.
And that's our Vadar software.
Vadar, is that the new system?
No, that's the
Accounting
system
assistant.
that we have for collections and accounting.
Okay.
That's about 10, almost 11,000 a year on that. And I'm graciously giving back $500 of that too now, only for the fact that I had come in after, we were 15,000 last year, and that's 15,800. I was asking for another 800 after the fact, because we moved to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we only have 2 passwords, and there are 4 of us using it. So we thought that a third password would help. But the company is using a new vendor now and went up to $1,000. So 800's not covering it, so we're gonna make 2 passwords work. So if I give you 500 back, that will cover the increase that I have
So
in
you
2
d-
bills that came in late.
So it's the 15, instead of 15,800 for 2015, you're saying it's 15,300?
Yeah, we can reduce that by.
And you can work with with the 2 passwords you've been working with it, I guess.
We're gonna try to.
Is that legal to do?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
It's,
Just more
we
cumbersome.
have, right, so only
Okay.
2 people can be on it at a
Yeah,
time.
understand.
Ninotchka's a heavy user, Julie is when she's in, so when people aren't in.
Okay.
Sometimes it means calling people back, but we're gonna try to make it work with the 2. Like I said, I didn't anticipate the increase, and they didn't either, so when they called me just a couple weeks ago, and I said, well, this is after my budget submission, so we'll make it work.
Okay, thank you. And that's everything, that's the total?
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much, that's Harper's and Vadar.
Okay. Now, I just, okay, and that's based on the invoices that you've received so far? Or that you're anticipating?
Yeah, I don't anticipate anything else.
Because when I look at your, again, you don't like this, but,
Yeah.
so do you pay it, you don't pay it evenly on a monthly basis?
No.
'Cause- Okay,
No.
it's quarterly or?
Yeah, well, it's sporadic. The Harper's, we pay every 2 weeks.
Hmm.
The Vadar, that I don't have what the balance is now.
This was at the end of January, it spent 12,400.
All right, so I paid for
15,000.
Vadar, so now it's just,
Just gonna be Harper going
Yeah,
forward?
it's just
Okay,
Harper's going
Okay,
forward.
just wanted to make sure it was fine.
yeah.
Okay, postage, everything else?
Everything else is level funded.
Yeah.
Postage, postage has gone up. We're mailing more. This is real estate excise, bills, demand, it's everything. We have the most postage that we're sending out than anyone in town hall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, everything else is level funded.
Were you down a little bit on office supplies?
And I moved that to in-state travel, I think, from year to year, isn't it?
You went down 300 in office supplies and up 250 and then travel.
And the dues.
No, and then a little bit after
To
dues,
cover,
okay,
yeah.
there you go.
So just, I tried to make it, I know Bob likes it, what's actually spent, and I'm not, I try in the beginning
Look
of
at
the
the
year.
influence you have on her.
But by the end of the year, when I'm struggling, because I actually went 5 cents over last year, Julie had to cover me on her budget.
Come on, that's not responsible.
I'm hitting from anywhere I can, so.
Is your travel going to be up though?
For meetings
Yeah.
and stuff, I'm, the Minute Manitoba Health Group, I'm going to my 3rd year as chairman, and that requires attending more meetings than I care to attend.
Hmm.
So that's high, and then the Mass Municipal Personnel Association, the Collectors and Treasurers Association, yeah, too many meetings, so.
And we see the tax taking is, I know that's spread,
Well, we reduced it, I'm doing, we should be probably spending that all down, because I'm doing some takings next week.
okay, and the 500's enough? Now?
If it isn't,
You
it'll
can
go
find,
from
you
somewhere
can find
else,
some
yeah.
places. Okay. Anybody have any questions on the treasurer's budget?
I have one. So I utilize the online service to pay my tax bill. I'm assuming many other people do, and it's probably growing.
It's growing.
Do you realize any reduction in, do you realize any savings from people doing that, or does it cost more for people to do that, or do you?
No, well, there's no
save
cost. When you do
economic-
ACH,
Yeah.
you know, from your checking account, there's no
but the
cost.
paying for the service, or, I don't know how that works.
No, there's not. The people use credit card, they pay for their service.
Yeah.
The other costs that we have are incremental.
Okay, so
So,
it doesn't matter to you if somebody pays?
no,
bill
you know,
in
we
person, or-
prefer it. I mean, we're still getting,
Yeah.
we still get a huge mail and walk-in volume here, and it's just the nature of the residents.
Mhm.
But excise has definitely increased online. They're smaller amounts. I think people feel comfortable in that.
Yeah.
And real estate, Ninochka has some numbers. I think we're upwards of maybe 12% on excise and about 7% for real estate. So it's not bad. It helps. It gives people options to pay.
Anyone else? Everybody okay with the budget?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so the next grouping for you are all the employee benefits except for workers' comp.
Right.
So,
The number?
so it starts 9/11, 9/11, 9/13, 14, 15, and 16.
I'll pass these up
Thank you.
to. This covers the history of the last 5 fiscal years for the health insurance and the retirement that we budgeted.
Thank you.
So the retirement is 9/11. In the past, when you look down at fiscal year 10, 11, and actually 12, Worcester Retirement, which we're a member, basically what they would do is take the total of our payroll and all the other 95 members and kind of divide it proportionally for how many members you had. So we were paying for the sins of others. We were paying for other towns that had disabilities and everything. A couple years back, people thought that that wasn't equitable. So 3 years ago, they started converting from payroll base to actuarial base. So the first year, we did 33% actuarial, 66% payroll. The next year, we flipped it. And this year is the first year we're 100% actuarial, and you can see we had a nice
Yeah.
$60,000 drop. So this is a true picture of where our employees and retirees are. And I think you're gonna see that it's, and this goes back, it's only a hair over FY10, so I think we're getting a nice savings. I don't expect a huge jump until FY18, when there'll be a disability that will probably hit us. Because every 2 years now, they're doing the actuarial study, so 18 will be the next possible year that anything big could hit us. There'll be minor increases, but I think this puts us back in good place.
That's great.
So that was good news. The next one is unemployment, 913, and we'll just keep the placeholder of $100 in there as we've done in the past.
Okay.
Actually, if I could jump back 1 second to my budget, we didn't really, the educational assistance, we are leaving that at 800. I know in the past we've had discussions. I did have someone this past fiscal year who used the money, but I have no one
Still,
now.
is our unofficial policy still sort of first come, first served on it?
It is.
If it's out, it's out.
And I don't, so I didn't know if
People
you wanted to, we'll just
You've
leave it at
made an
800.
$800 payment in January.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, we-
Oh, this year,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes. Someone at the library, she finished her degree, so she did use it over 2 fiscal years.
So the background quickly on this is tuition reimbursement that we offer to town employees, and
Who've worked here a year, they're eligible to,
we've had it as high as $3,000-$4,000 in the past, and we've whittled it down a lot. There was a lot of run on it when the police had the, what was the thing that were getting more money, had more.
oh, they still do,
Yeah, the Quinn
educational
bill- the
incentive.
Quinn
Yeah,
bill.
we have the Quinn bill
Yeah,
equivalent.
and so there was a run for a while, and then it kind of took it down, and.
And then we went a few years where it hadn't been touched at all.
Nothing, yeah. So is there anybody requesting it that's not getting it? No.
No,
So that's
No.
important.
so,
Yeah.
so,
So we used it 13, and you said we used it 14?
you used it 13 and
Yeah,
14.
13 and 14.
Yeah.
And then so you're keeping it at 800.
Yep, someone from the library
That's
used
right.
it, she got her degree, and I haven't heard anything from anyone
Are they
else.
And
not-
everybody knows about it? I mean, it
Well,
seems like such a
This is
nice
the same thing
benefit.
last year. Does anybody know about it?
yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, I'll put it in the information for open enrollment. That's kind of when all benefited people get information on it. I think the police department certainly knows, because they've used it, the library knows, they've used it.
Is it not, do you think there's any chance that it's not, you're not getting requests because people know there was only $800 in it and it's already gone?
I don't think people have any idea what money's in it. You know, it's always been first come, first serve, so.
When we used to do much more,
Yeah, there was more demand.
there was more demand. So if we were to find out that there was demand for it,
Right.
because is it a benefit, it's a benefit to the extent that we fund it? Is that the way it's?
Right, and last year I think we left it, that we'd leave the 800, and if we found that demand was great, I would come back to you. And
I think that's,
we
yeah.
would make a decision
That
that
would be
way.
an important thing to do, yeah, that same,
We whittled it down from the high demand periods because to
There was
Don's
no
point, there was a
demand,
couple of years where we.
Where I
Yeah, I
turned,
can
we
see it,
turned it
yeah.
all back, yeah,
yeah, in 2011 and 12.
yeah. So we'll just leave it as is, and that'll
Yeah,
be the
no, that's
policy.
fine.
If all of a sudden there's a big demand, I'll come
Yeah.
see you.
And just for clarity, everybody knows that there was a certain amount of money that's allocated. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. It's
Right.
not like if there was a huge influx of demand that we'd be obligated to pay for every.
Well, that's what I was asking, how the
dollar of
policy
demand.
works.
Yeah, and see, some people thought when they were doing their budgets that it was for, you know, certain conferences and that type of thing. It's not that. That has to be put into your budget. That this is for, it's not supposed to, not necessarily a degree, but it's supposed to be for college coursework.
And how do you change it from first come, first serve? If you know there are more than one person, can you divide it? You share it?
Well, no, right now it is first come, first serve. I think if I had a couple of people come and there was a demand, I'd come see you all and let you figure out what you wanted to do.
Mhm.
But like I said, there were so many years when no one used it. And I actually, you know, talked to the person at the library. And I said, I know you're going to school.
Mhm.
She, you know, had worked here over a year. And I said, it's something that you should consider. She talked to Kelly. The library trustees supported her. And we went forward. Because you do have to get approval of your department head.
Right.
So,
because
but that's never been an issue.
Yeah.
And the theory behind that is that, so it's sort of, the degree is helping them in
Exactly.
their job and not just educating them so they can leave.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's worked
Though that
pretty well.
does happen.
We can't prevent it.
No, we can't put that out.
Okay.
Thank you for
Sorry,
bringing
yeah,
us back to
I
that.
did want to bring that back. So again, 913, the unemployment, we'll leave that at the 100 and hope that we don't get claims.
Outstanding claims was, well, I guess 12. Okay, and then moving, then health insurance.
Health insurance, 914. We've had some 2 good years of claims. Last year we had a 0% increase. This year we actually have a decrease in our insurance premiums, but I am covering 5 more people now than I was. And I know of 1 more person who will pick up in the next fiscal year.
Can you explain to us how people get covered? Because we know there aren't a lot more, there are no more new employees. I
Right.
mean, there may be some employees, but how are people
Well,
getting
you
covered?
know, if you're on your family plan, for instance, and you're a dependent, and you reach 26, you have to get your own insurance. People lose their health insurance coverage, so, you know, if the
Spouse
spouse
loses
got
theirs
it,
and then they
right,
have to
and then
get
we
through
pick it
Change
up.
of jobs and.
Change jobs. If, you know, we have some couples that are now 2 people, and it's cheaper to have 2 separate individual policies than a family. So I anticipate we'll pick up a few more.
Are these 5 people, have they been individual plans or family plans?
One is a family plan, the others are individual. This also covers, so not only are we level funding and covering more people, but we're also covering a flexible spending account, and there's a small portion of this that will go towards wellness. The Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, last month, I hired a wellness coordinator for the Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, and we're moving into some wellness options that will be available for all employees
So,
throughout
Is
the
that
joint
an
purchase
additional,
group.
is that part of their premium, or how's that?
Well, a number of the plans offer wellness within it. The Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, we have dedicated a certain amount of money to pay the cost of the coordinator and some of the benefits.
Mhm.
We've set a budget. We're probably gonna be spending in the range of maybe about $150,000. Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, because claims were so good this year, kicked in $2.2 million to the premium, and that's why we've seen a decrease. Our claims have been very good for 2 years. So for Bolton being one of the smallest members, it's the best way for me to get insurance for our employees.
we still ask this question every year, so forgive me, but
Mhm.
we still do the 70-30 share,
We do.
and that is consistent with other towns and the union contracts that we've been negotiating recently and the like. It's
Yeah,
Still have
you know,
parity.
it ranges anywhere from, we have one member community, and Minuteman Neshoba does 50-50, but they offer a much wide range of benefits also. And I'd say the top plans now are about 75-25, so we're, you know, mid-range. I'd say we're probably average to some. You know, I'd say 3 years ago, there were a number of towns that were paying 90, and they've negotiated it all down to 75 now.
So, is there any consideration to Bolton switching at some point to 75-25 as opposed to 70-30?
That would have to be negotiated in all the contracts. I don't see that happening. Right now, we don't offer dental insurance, though through the Fallon plans that I offer, they offer family dental at no additional charge.
How many different kinds of plans do we?
We offer Fallon, two plans in Fallon, Direct and Select Care. We offer Tufts and Harvard Pilgrim. So, and they're very, even though we had to go to a deductible for the first time last year, they're a very rich plan. So I think we give a good benefit.
And there is parity between the, between the union and non-union folks?
Everyone has the same plan. And across, Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, just for those of you who don't know, it's a joint purchase group of 17 towns and school districts that join together to purchase health insurance. And
Is our school district part of it?
no,
Well, our district does have 70-30 split, right? I believe they
I believe they do 70.
Yeah, I don't know,
Is it, Stasha, do you remember that? I think it was 70-30.
I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
yeah. And I don't know what plan types they offer.
How often do you pay the premiums on the health insurance?
Monthly.
That's monthly.
Mhm.
So if I look at the end of January, you've paid more than 7/12 of the total budgeted for last year. That implies you're gonna run out of money.
That's,
No,
should
they
be
pay
6
52
months.
no, that's
7
through,
through January.
no, yeah, just through December.
Through January. Unless there's a 1-month lag between something and here. Okay,
If it was through January, that's 7 months.
That's 7
Yeah,
months.
7 months.
right.
That's,
But, you know, if you look at the monthly run rate and you extend it out for 5 months, you come up with 182, and there's 164 left in the balance. So, are you gonna run short this
No.
year?
No, I think we'll be okay.
Right, because there've been big excesses in this account for the past couple of years. Like
Mhm.
40,000 last year and 30-something the year before and stuff like
Again,
that.
Well,
people coming in and going out, right.
in
Okay.
2012 was 414 to 420, you know, the actual was 414.
I know last year there was,
Last year there was a
yeah, we had dropped down a few.
50,000, 20,
Yeah, last year there was a 45,000
Yeah.
excess, 26,000 the year before,
Mm-mm.
13,000 the year before that.
When I'm doing my budgeting, I only budget for the people I know about.
Okay.
I don't pad it.
No.
No, I'm not saying
I'm
that.
not saying-
But that would
So-
indicate that over the past 4 years, you've
People
had
have come and
more
gone.
people leave
Right.
than come. Is
Yeah,
that
we've
what
had-
your experience has
Mhm.
been?
Okay.
We've had, people come, I could do the budget one day, and the next day, two people
No,
could come in
I
and have
understand
health
that.
insurance. So that's why there have been some
The swings,
swings.
okay.
And luckily, they've been in our favor, and I haven't had to come back and ask for more money.
All right, so you think the 420 is gonna carry you through this year?
Yes.
And you think that 420 would be the appropriate amount for
Mhm.
next year?
Yeah.
So, but let me just be clear for me, is the 420 is the itemized list of everybody that you know about right now on health insurance, assuming that they're here the whole year, and it's the whole amount.
The whole amount, it
Okay.
covers retirees.
Even though it's a
covers-
nice round number.
It covers our
it
flexible
is.
spending.
Okay, yeah.
It does.
All right.
Now the wellness is added.
And the wellness. It will.
So with the decrease in the
decrease in premium,
they
right.
had the decrease in the premium,
Yeah.
added the wellness, added these
No, it's
additional
just,
people.
Yeah.
it looks
I know that because
round,
the
it
420 is
just-
a round
yeah,
number.
Right, we had a 5% decrease in premium, and that enables me to kind of, move things around,
Okay.
so,
And to and add on the other
and
5.
add on the 5 people.
Dave, did you get that? Add on another 5, the numbers stay the same. So we can count on that being added in as a positive? All right, thank you.
Okay. Everybody comfortable with the health insurance piece?
I am, yeah.
Good,
I'm fine.
good. And then, life insurance,
Life insurance, there hasn't been much change. We budget for, again, what we know. If new employees come in, they're offered life insurance when they first come in. So,
I know, it's a $10,000 policy. or
it
something,
is, I would certainly, we've looked at offering, additional life insurance that the employees
right?
would pay
the
themselves.
price, yeah.
There is some talk, across the state of trying to up that basic life insurance that's offered
Yeah.
to at least a $50,000.
Yeah.
Nothing's really happened. It's
Well, we
not
could
much,
do-
and when you retire, it drops to 5,000.
But
so-
couldn't we just do that? That wouldn't cost us anything, as, let the employee pay for, if they wanted to pay for.
Oh, we could, right.
We could do that. It
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
cost us anything, it would give our employees a little bit more, it would give them the à la carte option to protect themselves a little bit
Oh,
more.
right, I'm always looking
Yeah.
at benefits, we've offered disability, we offer a number of other options that they pick up on their own. And that's why if Fallon had actually, 2 years ago, said they were gonna stop the dental insurance, and I would have had to go out and find dental insurance for our people, and they would have had to pay the 100%. When I looked at that, I was gonna join together, because out of the 17 members, only Harvard, Boxborough, and ourselves don't offer dental, out of the 17 members.
so that would be a totally separate
It
policy.
would be a totally separate policy that they would pick up themselves.
Mhm.
So yeah, we do offer
On the flip
options
side,
like
we
that, but the
pay-
life
We
insurance.
pay 70/30, those towns that offer dental might pay 75/25, and so the town employee may be just as well off here,
Exactly.
not having dental and
Yeah.
paying for dental out of pocket.
70, yeah.
Yeah, on the health insurance, we pay 70/30. Some towns kick in some for dental, but a number of them don't. And then life insurance, we pay 50/50. So
One
last,
second, one
Okay,
more.
sure.
Okay, go ahead. And then we'll-
The 70/30 is 70 that the town pays. and
Yeah, I
30
thought it was
that-
70,
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
70/30.
for
Yeah,
health
but
insurance.
the way you,
So
you were
I was-
making it sound like it was gonna be, that it
No,
was
what I
the
was saying
employee.
was-
beneficial the other way.
What I was
yeah.
saying is some of the other towns that offer dental and pay whatever they pay, they're at 75/25 on their health.
They might be.
And make-
They
and-
might be
we're-
paying
since
more.
we're- Right,
Yeah.
we're at 70/30, we don't offer dental, the employee might actually be in the same economic spot as another town that offers. You were using it as an
Right.
example that we were one of 2 towns that don't offer dental.
Right, we're one of 3 that
Which
don't
is
offer dental at
disadvantageous
all.
to our employees.
It is.
However, we are one of, if you polled those 19 or 17
Mhm.
towns, we might be one of the few that are 70/30.
But 75 is
aggressive on-
better.
Yeah.
No, 70.
75 is, the town is
The
picking
town
up.
pays.
Oh,
So
so
for
sorry.
Yeah, you're reversing it, I'm trying to
See,
say.
I thought you wanted to be,
Saying
Randy,
I
I
was
was
trying to be
confused.
smart, I was making it.
Randy wants to
Yeah.
be more generous.
I apologize.
No.
Hopefully the unions are listening.
Yeah.
Yes. We're fine.
We're fine. Well, for instance, one of our members, Concord, they're the only ones that only pay 50, but they cover 50% for dental, they cover 50% for vision, they
Understand, no,
cover, you
my
know.
math.
So everybody-
backwards
So
away.
all the towns are doing what they feel that they need to do, with what, sort of trying to combine what they're offering, what they're requiring their employees to be able to.
What their unions
to
require,
attract,
exactly.
you know, what their unions, to be able to
Yeah,
attract. the
if you're
best employees.
interested, for next year, I can get you the comparison of what
Yeah, that'd be
everyone else is
helpful.
doing.
Yeah. It's a good thing on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, 17, yeah, good. Worries me, I hope nobody throws.
I wasn't gonna,
I'm just trying to think about it.
I wasn't
Thank
quite,
you.
So I
That's
don't,
okay.
it made sense in my head.
That's even.
it sounded good to you.
Drink some more coffee.
Okay,
And
the last piece is.
The last
that
budget is 916 Medicare.
Medicare, which
And
is-
Julie has made sure that it ties in with the salary amount, so.
And it's again level funded, even though wages are going up.
Yeah, but there's other wages that are in there that are in the general fund, like grants and police details and things like that, so
Oh, okay.
I'm just
So-
hoping that that'll.
You think that'll be okay?
Okay, so that's a good question, because we did have an instance a year or two ago where we had put COLAs and stuff in, and then realized later that we needed to make an adjustment here, so we're comfortable now, Julie, that all the salaries and steps.
It could be tight, I mean, again, depending upon how the police details come out and the grants and things like that, but
So,
I didn't wanna add.
Yeah, I mean, you never know with
So-
overtime, if overtime runs really high for the DPW and police,
No, if you have snow and ice that goes crazy,
Right,
then that's gonna
then that's
affect
gonna
us.
go crazy.
So,
but
it's hard to actually put a
a number.
number on it.
Yeah.
Might this change once you get the information from the police department that you're wanting?
No, because you still
okay.
don't know overtime until it actually
Well,
happens.
the overtime number,
Yeah.
yeah. Strange.
Right, so,
Okay.
If you wanna give me another 1,000, I'd be more than willing to take it.
Well, you're running a little ahead right now this year.
Yeah, but she's, well, it's hard to know. It's again, let's leave it, let's leave it.
yeah, it's hard to know, I would watch it and, you know,
But just so everyone knows that may not be following the conversation, there's a direct correlation to
wages,
salaries and wages in this town.
it is.
It is.
It's 1.45%.
Can't, and it's what's required, I mean, we're just
Right.
holders, you know, it's nothing that we're doing, we're holding the money to give it to the feds. Yes, David?
If I could go back to the retirement assessment briefly, the favorable experience the last 2 years, does that have anything to do with the good performance of the financial markets, or is it just solely the change from payroll to amortization?
Just actuarial based.
Just the actual?
Yep. Though, Worcester Retirement does have its funds with the state, and they have regained everything that they lost in 2008 at our investment meeting. They're in good shape now.
But that doesn't reduce our assessment, it just reduces the unpaid balance or
Yes.
the
Mhm.
unpaid liability?
It does. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Donna?
I do have one. Do you find it better to meet with us later in the process than you do earlier?
Yes.
Because things are more solid at this point?
Well, just because we've just firmed up the health insurance
Yeah.
numbers and everything, so
Oh,
it's always better to come a little later, so then I have solid numbers.
Different topic, not your budget, but
My budget
the bans that we have from the state.
falls under me also.
Yes, and everyone who's involved in this question is in the room, so this is good.
Okay.
We have some outstanding borrowings from the state that we can prepay if we have the cash. And, for example, the Weatherby property, we have cash. So what do you need to take the cash that's in, you know, for the Weatherby property, we borrowed $250, we've got $80,000 unused, let's lower the outstanding balance. What process do you need in order to do that this June?
Julie and myself went through the numbers. She showed what was available,
Okay.
and we have a schedule to pay.
Okay, but do you need
Down in
anything from
Emerson,
us? Do you
no.
need a vote? Do you need anything from Don?
No.
No, okay.
No, so we'll be paying down more on the Emerson Well and the Weatherby.
So the two,
property.
the 84, so that what's appearing in other available funds borrowed is $84,000, 84,881.
So we should take that off our.
So right now, for instance, the ban that I have right now on all these individual items is $387,049.
Okay,
I'm anticipating in June to do a ban for $176,108. So we are paying down,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Because what,
What
sorry,
was
would
the
you
first
say that
number
again?
$387,49 is the ban I currently have that expires June 15th.
Okay,
And I'll be renewing a ban for $176,108.
okay, and you're gonna use
That's-
the Weatherby,
We're paying down a big chunk on the Weatherby and a big chunk on the Emerson, and then a smaller little amounts that
the
was
Emerson
extra
improvement.
interest.
Okay.
Yes,
They are,
And does
the ban.
the accelerated pay down have, I mean, it would be immaterial really for next year, but wouldn't it, it has a different interest component for future years
Right,
on the debt amortization schedule?
well, see, the bans are renewed every year. So what'll happen is I'll give our financial advisor this, and it goes out to the market. So it's whatever that is. It's year. It's not like a bond,
Understood.
like the public safety building. It's a 1 year.
But what benefit, so I know we get benefit by reducing our debt burden, but the interest that we save on paying down a chunk of principal is not, we don't have that expense assumed in the 15 budget that would come down in any way? I guess.
No,
So where would that
What have you
expense
put
be?
in?
I don't know,
interest.
those two might adjust a little, the
Yeah.
Weatherby
Okay.
and the Emerson.
I mean, it would be small, but
It would
I
be
just
small,
want to be
right.
mindful that we would come down a little bit.
You would come
Yeah,
down.
okay.
I mean, interest has been very low when I've been doing these bans year to year over the last few years. So you would see a small decrease.
so if we were to explain this to people in the town,
Mhm.
that, what the benefit of doing this is, less borrowing,
Right, and you are paying down
and you're paying
debt
you're paying
for
down debt, which will affect.
quicker, which you do
But
save.
the other big thing is we have funds encumbered right now for a certain project that
That
that we
don't
exist
need.
in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the only
So why
way to
not use
apply
that?
it is to either pay it down, or I
Or
guess you
use
go
it
to
for a
town
like
meeting
project.
and use it for a like
Exactly.
project.
Right.
It's
No, I think it makes
yeah.
sense to use, these funds for those.
So on that question of the other borrowed available funds, are any of those suitable for paying down more of this ban debt?
Yeah.
Well,
The chipper, the DPW truck, defibrillators. and the
Well, it's
CPR.
too
None
early.
of- None of that can go to a town meeting and say,
Yeah, well, possibly the,
okay.
I don't think so.
well, we talked about, well, not for the ban, but we talked about the $10,000 for this left in the sewer.
Can we go to another project?
And another
like
project, but not
debt?
for a ban, right?
Right.
Julie's identified the two ban pieces. These smaller, the pagers, the police, fire and ambulance software, and the defibrillators are all too recent, but they might have some uses, right?
Yes, but these
But
other
not-
areas that
these
are
two-
available, I
these
just
two.
wanted to ask if they could also be used to pay down bans because they're borrowings, and the answer is they're not close enough to the need,
Right,
to
so
the
this,
use to match.
but they could be possibly used for,
Other
Like a
projects
need,
or other-
or we
Yeah.
cloud the warrant up with asking the town to extinguish them and use them for another. I
we
guess.
could do the
we
capital,
could use
we
it
could for the capital
It has to be
improvement.
like.
It has
Yeah.
to be another borrowing.
So it's interesting, right, because if you borrow for something so specific, and you over borrow, you can't use, unless you need that thing again in 20 years, you can't
What is
ever.
it? It's not as
extinguish.
specific as that one thing.
Right.
It's just something that you can borrow for.
So if it was
Right.
scuba gear for the fire department, we could use it as something else related to the fire department
It
rescue
doesn't have to be
gear.
fire department.
No.
No.
It could be police departments.
And it could be anything that looks like it has a similar life, as
Right.
I understand it,
And,
right?
and that's what they do, that, they look to the life of
Okay.
what it is.
So you could-
And that's why when the whole, Fire Shower Dam, for instance, came up, you can't borrow, you could borrow to rebuild the dam. They don't let you borrow to take down a dam,
Right.
because you're supposed to have something where it has a
Yeah.
life.
Right.
That's,
Hazardous
that-
waste is not something that you can borrow.
exactly.
because it's not
And
a
that's
taxable item.
the Department of Revenue, that's their regulations, that you have to borrow for a thing, not just something that's going away.
Okay, well, good?
Great.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's good. Okay, so that's all in your hands. and
That's all in my
stuff.
hands.
Okay, right.
Yep.
Yes, David?
When you pay down debt, debt service is both principal, in the budget,
And
is both
interest.
principal payment and interest.
Right.
And paying down bands, principal payment overwhelms interest because interest rates are so low. So I'm not arguing we shouldn't do this. I think it's laudable, but aren't we actually increasing the budget the more we pay down debt because that raises debt service costs?
How does that raise debt service
It
costs?
wouldn't, you might not see as much as dramatic as you might see if it were a higher borrowing amount, but
You're lowering
You're
the
lowering,
amount of outstanding debt.
and therefore the interest.
But you're taking an expense to do that.
Not in this
No,
case.
no, in this case,
No,
we've already.
Not in the Weatherby case, but if you accelerated,
no, but these are two specific items, I
Right.
think.
if you accelerated generally the paying down,
Well,
Yeah, if we apportion
it's-
free cash.
we treat it like any other capital project.
if you don't want to pick up your time, I
Yeah,
just
let's go,
wonder
let's,
about the budget aspect.
We treat the idea of paying down bands as an equal opportunity use as any other capital project.
Right.
To David's point, taking free cash and paying down debt, not in the case of weather, because that's an easy one to decide, has other implications
Yes.
than, yes, which is a valid point. But we're not suggesting that in this
No.
case.
okay. Everybody good? Thank you,
It's been a
Donna.
pleasure. Excellent, thank you.
See you next year.
Yep.
Hoping that
Yeah, don't come back.
Don't come back.
Helene, this is a very exciting thing. It's like giving birth here to a new department.
Good luck on
Does that mean you're expecting a lot
We don't have a number.
are you expecting a lot of yelling and screaming in the next 15 minutes?
I hope not. Oh, look at, she's beating her apple computer. Do we have a number for this? 182. I don't even know if we can hear this. Okay. So welcome. So Helene Dimmer is here as chair of the Economic Development Committee.
Yep.
And been in existence since, let me finish all my sentences.
That's okay, this is a shtick, 2010.
2010, first time now coming and asking for some funding from us.
Yes.
And I think that was, I think we first brought it up to the select board, and then they said, go for it, and you put together a budget of $1,000. Why don't you tell us first, just for people that don't know, just in 1 minute, give me 1 minute, talk about what EDC
Can
does.
give you the elevator conversation.
Not from the Eiffel Tower or the, but the short elevator version, yeah.
So we're on camera, so
Mhm.
I will be very good here. So, we are the Economic Development Committee of a town that is very leery of economic development. So we've had a very interesting mission since 2010. We are taking a very positive mission right now, and we're trying to promote local businesses by creating excitement and events to try to bring knowledge about what Bolton is and hopefully get people excited about doing business in Bolton. What's interesting is since 2010, we have spent money, but it's been private money. So members have come forward, i.e. we are doing ribbon cutting ceremonies. We have not done any since May, but I purchased the scissors, I purchased the ribbon, I purchased the banner that we march in the parade. So we've done a lot of things, but out of my personal pocket and other people's. So, and I'll continue to do that because we have an event coming up in April. We are going to do a tour of the former Delta Equity Building, similar to what they did on the 275th anniversary. We are going to partner with the Neshoba Valley Chamber of Commerce and do a breakfast meeting to try to get excitement about what Ray Grenier has done, beautifully done to his building, and hopefully get some excitement about doing business in Bolton. So we're gonna pay for that too. So we're looking for $1,000, very minimal in my mind. we would like to do some mailing. Not even sure, now that we have this relationship with Neshoba Valley Chamber of Commerce, maybe we could get them to pay for some, but we're not sure because this is a new relationship we have. We would like to do some brochures that local businesses can give out. And we can also, similar to the banner where we brought basically awareness about businesses, and tying into that, we have a website which actually gets a lot of recognition, and we would like to do some more marketing, trying to get awareness of what Bolton is and trying to get people excited about Bolton. So
we have in here, we had mailing of $100,
mhm.
brochures and literature, is that printing costs?
Yes.
$200,
Mhm.
and then $700 for online marketing,
Mhm.
and that, is that your website?
Right, so right now, we've done everything volunteer-wise. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the website. I think it's a really, really nice website, and it's been volunteer-based, but there are some help that you can get with a monthly cost, that people can help you try to get, pushes, boosts, they call it. So that's what that would be.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Blaine in regard to this?
What do you think the financial benefits to the town might be?
Okay, I would like to think that we had some say or some impact in Frank Patterson buying the salt box. Obviously, Frank did that on his own, but I think we had a lot of excitement at town meeting a couple years ago with the village overlay. I think we will get people to want to do their business in Bolton. So for instance, if we can help the Bolton Office Park people,
They're losing their main tenant, their last tenant, right? Is that correct?
yes, and obviously they have other plans in process, or depending upon what the town does with all of our zoning and stuff like that. I think it
Well,
is.
do you think but is the effect going to be broadening the tax base? Is the effect going to be
I am not
something
even
that,
talking about the tax base, to be honest
well,
with
something
you.
that makes the town more attractive to home buyers?
Yes,
or-
we got beat up
Oh,
about talking about
So
tax
I'm-
base, so I
I'm
am.
throwing out different alternatives here.
We are conceptually at a disagreement with the town and people about what business can do to our tax base. And everybody in this room has had some opinion over the past couple years. Some people feel that for business to really make a dent in the tax base, we would need the size of several Walmarts, and obviously that's not going to happen.
Mhm.
So I view it might be minuscule to the tax base because we would have to do a lot of business to make impact, but maybe we can add some amenities to the town to make it more attractable for people selling their houses and why people would want to move to Bolton, other than a school system.
Is there any,
Sorry,
are you,
you targeting consumer kind of businesses as opposed to business-to-business operations, or?
I think Bolton, we have talked about a branding in Bolton, and I think town people really have spoken very loudly about what people want to see in the town. We've talked about a branding of Bolton, apples, agriculture, a great winery, a great golf course. So I don't see business really going totally off that parameter of those items that I just mentioned. In addition to restaurants for our people. I mean, obviously, restaurant for our residents, doctor's offices.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have a letter in the newspapers this weekend, putting forth the proposition that the amenities Bolton offers now in the terms of having nice stone walls and lots of trees and stuff like that, and focusing solely on that stuff is hurting our real estate prices. And that what we really need to do is focus more on improving the schools and having more amenities in town. But these would have to be, consumer kinds of things, not just getting business in town, consumer kind of things. So I personally would like to see you, as you're trying to decide how to spend your time and your efforts here, working on consumer-oriented business and attracting them to town.
That's really great, Bob, and you're probably preaching to the choir, but
Okay.
I think people have very short memories here, and that's okay, and I can really appreciate that. But you're very well aware that the Economic Development Committee got really beat up.
No, I recognize
So
that.
I'm very leery. I would love to see amenities, and I really believe that Frank Patterson, in my mind, is a real champion to this town. And I'm hoping that this brings some momentum. If people can see, hey, this is what Frank's going to do to the salt box, maybe that might give people confidence in Bolton. And with the village overlay proposal that's coming through from the planning board, maybe that will bring some momentum back. I'm really leery to basically talk publicly about it because I really feel we got beat up, so we were trying to be very positive. Maybe I'm not being truthful, maybe I'm keeping my real feelings in our, but we have to be really careful, and I got advice from several people in this room,
Well, I
to really.
just laid out my point of view.
No, to really temper
Yeah,
our mission, and
okay.
people know who they are.
Well, I think to
Try running for
Bob's
select
point, on consumer amenities, I mean, Don can tell you that anytime he's walked through with real estate agents and potential business owners looking to lease space in the Bolton Office Park, to lease space in where Paragon is, because they don't have, their business is not consuming the entire building or sets of buildings. And you'll hear from everybody that walks through that says that the reluctance of business coming to Bolton is a lack of consumer amenities. There is no grocery store, there is no drugstore, there aren't, a restaurant, or whatever it might be. And that can be good and bad, but that's the reality. So I think, short term, we have to find ways to attract business to Bolton Office Park, because when one of their main tenants finally vacates, that building will be at 20% occupancy. The Skinner property is sat empty for years. Paragon is doing whatever they can to try to sublet portions of
Or the
their
Cobra,
building.
or whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
And the discussion of the tax rate, filling those buildings up is going to do nothing to really drastically change at all the tax base. But what it does do is it brings in additional revenue where we don't necessarily have the same proportion of need of services. And there's no, incremental strain on the school budget, because people are going to be coming to work as opposed to, not everyone's going to be enrolled. So, you won't necessarily have a high proportion of increase in student enrollment. So that's all good stuff. But, I agree with you, and Don can chime in. That's what business owners are saying when they look to try to move into one of the vacant buildings or portions of buildings in the town.
Well, my opinion is this can certainly, if done the right way, and I've been one of the ones who've been somewhat vocal about this, I think it can help. I don't like to see committees spending money doing their volunteer work out of their own pocket for anything. It's a small amount. The majority of our committees have some sort of budget. I I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this, you were established by the selectmen, and I think by having, I know, like you said, the majority, I was thinking, who doesn't, or maybe it's Energy Committee at this point, I think almost all of our committees have somebody, and
Task.
I mean, if you you've been given this charter to do something, and if you don't have any funds to do it in, I think that is not the right way to go. So I am totally in support of the budget, and I think you'll see if it works and how it
Yeah.
works for you.
I have lots of ideas. I mean, my latest also is trying to also get the library to become a revenue generator. I think we have a real opportunity with a beautiful, beautiful building to really bring some revenue in. If you look at the Boston Public Library, they hold events there. I don't see why the Bolton Library is distance from that. I think that could be a real opportunity to Bolton. So, as I said, I really think Frank is going to be a real showcase to what can be done in Bolton, and I think we all need to support him.
So looking at the budget, let's get back and draw this in a little bit. So looking at the budget, how does everybody feel about what the EDC is proposing for their budget, their first budget?
I'm fine.
Question,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know the history of the big activity.
It's just as well.
I feel like, right, I'm kind of like glad I don't.
Lucky you.
But in that vein, I guess, in terms of trying to make sure that this is done right, if there's a resistance in town and we're using taxpayers' dollars then to fund a budget that's of a committee that's contentious, I guess?
I don't know if
Is that how it works, or I'm not,
Actually, you bring a really good point.
okay.
So it's really important for people at town meeting to come out, because it always seems at a town meeting, it might be the 80-20 rule, if you will. It could be that 20% of the population has 80% of the voice. You're never quite sure exactly what the makeup of town
Sure.
meeting is going to come out of. We did a survey, and back in 2010, and it was a third split. About third of the town wanted nothing to happen, stay as is, no change. Third of the population wanted maybe some minor change, and a third really wanted change.
Interesting.
Depending upon, I don't know, Stacia?
Stasha, yes.
Stasha, how long you've been in the town, but town meeting is a very interesting place. You're never quite sure exactly the
yes.
makeup. So we are contentious depending upon the issue. And it just so happened that when the Economic Development Committee was formed, some major issues were going on with some property in town.
Oh, okay, so that could have clouded the kind of the streamlined idea.
We don't need to rehash it all now.
No, I didn't mean to bring it up in that light, only
It was,
in one vein.
it was wrong place at the wrong time, I think, kind of example. I think the mission of the EDC got a little wayward, in my opinion. But I think to the greater point, you'll find a lot of people that will tell you they want development. They just want a certain type of development. And so just to that end, the EDC, if they're catering to the majority will of the town, they're doing good service, even though there was a particularly contentious town meeting a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I agree.
So in terms of the for example, the Agriculture Commission, maybe there's people that in town that don't want to support agriculture,
Sure.
but their tax dollars are going into
Sure.
the town, and like $1,000 and some dollars are going out to the Ag Committee. Is the Agriculture Commission, was that
That's a
voted
state.
on, or was that,
It's
how
a
did
state
that, like, how did you guys come to be, how did they come to be? I would support both of you, so I don't.
They're all
you know,
formed by
Everything's
the
different.
selectmen.
Yeah, it's all different. Some of them, like this historical commission is more, it was at a
Right.
town meeting vote
Okay.
it's a state agency, really, an arm of the state.
Okay.
I don't know about agricultural commission, might be something similar to that. EDC was formed by.
It was from the selectmen, but we were also, at the time, we were able to get a certain designation, an economic target area. And in order to be claimed as an economic target area, the town needed to have an economic development committee. So there was things that kind of went hand in hand. And I think, I might sound a little hostile or something.
Well, no, obviously, there's been some.
It's been a really interesting path from our birth, if you will, as kind of leading into that I was going to give birth or something, and I think we're figuring out exactly how the Economic Development Committee needs to work well with the town, and that's my goal as chairman.
And I love that you polled, obviously, so you've got information coming in from the townspeople.
Well, that was the original, that
That
started the contention, yes. So
Oh.
I
I think we're gonna.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll
We can
go
certainly
back
have
and
this
get it and come back.
discussion.
All right.
So trying to bring this back into what we're doing
Yes.
here. This is a committee that exists in town. They come to us with a budget of $1,000. How does everybody feel about it?
Okay,
Okay?
Great, excellent.
So just as you're following it through this year, try and
Oh, yeah.
see how they fit into each of these categories, so that at least coming back next year, we'll be able to figure out what makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about our event, April 30th, a breakfast meeting. It'll be RSVP, limited room only, and Ray Grenier very kindly opening up to get a great tour of that wonderful renovation he did to his barn.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming in and waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, hello, Chief Alfano and crew.
Hello. Hello, Dave.
We'll bring a couple of chairs up.
I think you should buy a bigger table.
So next year's budget, it's capital item on the warrant.
That's right.
So we have Chief Jim Alfano, Lorraine King, and
Lieutenant Warren Nelson.
Lieutenant Warren Nelson. He's always sitting in the background, but valuable. He's always orange. Oh, that's good. Okay.
Covering the six.
That's good.
Let him sit where he wants to sit.
Absolutely, that sounds good.
It's a very safe room.
That's good. You like it? Thank you. Good to hear. So welcome. As you said, we always love to come. We always love to see you here.
It's always an experience.
That it is. So you're here going to talk to us about 3 different budgets. I think the public safety building, which is 200, the police department 210, and communications 299. In the past, I think we've started with the police department and then come back. That's probably the most interesting way of doing it. Just to give an overview of what the total budget is for 210 Police Department, we have, the total budget is $1,040,180 compared to $1,027,189 last year, increase of about 13,000 or 1.3%. Of that, 9,000 of that is in wages, in overtime, and the balance is in other items. So that just gives a general overview of where the dollars are. Big dollars, but we'll talk about all the ones. So I can let you drive this if you want. We'll start with wages.
Okay. First, as I always like to do, I like to just take a second to give you an idea of the activity of the department for the year, because our activity certainly drives our budget and our budget planning. I always like to give statistics because, as you know, numbers are pretty good indicators of things. In 2012, the police department answered 9,563 calls for service of all types. 2013, last year, that figure rose to 10,609 calls for service. That's an increase in 1 year of 1,046 calls for service. So that, we consider that a significant increase in our activity level. Every year, I talk to Julie, and she's very kind to provide us with the statistics of the figures that the police department and our activities have added to the town as far as fees and funding. Last year, with court fees, fines, tickets, detail administration fees, and firearms fees, which have gone up considerably, the police department added $52,411 to the town general fund. Again, a significant amount of money. Okay.
Thank you. So in the increase in the number of calls, is it in any particular areas? Are these all pretty much motor vehicle?
No, they're, I looked at that to see if we had any disturbing trends, and I reflect everything in the town report, the narrative too. It's just a general increase in calls for service. The town's gotten to be a busier place. 117 has gotten much busier. We've gotten a lot more activity from there, from motor vehicle related. The officers are stopping a lot of cars. They're writing a lot of tickets. And we've had a good number of arrests, so right across the board. Okay, for the police department, would you like me to go just line by line like we normally do?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good. We'll, especially, we'll start that on the salary and wages, and then we'll see if we want to jump around on the bottom.
Okay. On the salary and wages, the salary's me. I'm here. I like it here. So that remains a constant. We were asking, needless to say, as in past years, to level fund our budget, and when we did our budget planning, that's what we looked at. So the vast majority of any increases that you would see would be either driven by contracts on the wage end, with both unions that the town administrator has dealt with, or increases in fees as you know, software licensing, et cetera, we'll see as we go down the line. Wages, $688,404. We
It's actually
budgeted,
going to be 702,069 with the steps, right? I mean, with the estimated COLA, if that's what we do.
Yes, it is an estimated COLA, because like I said, there wasn't quite as much detail as I had wanted to see.
Yeah, you need some more from
Yes.
you, Lorraine? Okay, and you know that?
Oh, I have sent you, that wasn't sufficient, what I sent you?
No, you broke it out more, but I
Mhm.
still don't know, like, who is the ed incentive and what the amounts are, and who you have for the reserve officers that make up the 38,000, and, I mean, you're pretty easy, but the full-time officers, and how many hours did you use? If I'm gonna actually calculate it out, like.
So I'll let you guys,
I
you'll work it out.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
okay, our overtime account, we had asked for $94,680. That is up from the $89,873 for last year. Again, we had an increase in the salaries.
All right, well, let me ask you about that, because in fiscal 13, you asked for 678. You spent 584. So there was an overage of 94,000 there. And in overtime, you asked for 70, you spent 115 for it, an under estimate of $44,000. And I'm wondering why you're keeping that so low. And it seems to me you should be moving some money from wages down to overtime.
I think that reflects that change. I'll let Lorraine address that, because that reflects a change in the way those are actually calculated.
Well, that goes back to fiscal year 12, where we took actuals within the wages and moved it into overtime. We were spending a lot of overtime out of actual wages. So we went through that exercise. Fiscal year 13, we were still we fully financed this the sergeant who was on IOD, so his full salary was in there, so there's a large portion of that we turned back because we didn't use it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
in 13.
But that's in the wages
That's
line.
in wages
Yeah.
only.
Okay.
So, the actuals that you see in 2013 were a reflection of, in 2013, I had an officer resign.
Officer
in-
Washington.
Yes, in
Yeah.
September. So we had, before we hired an officer in January, but there was a substantial amount of backfill. We had an officer who was on sick leave for many, many weeks. And then, no, and separate from this, we also had a dispatcher who was out on family medical leave for a substantial, and that's in another budget. However, that's where a majority of all that overtime in fiscal year 13 is where you see
So when you have somebody that's not working in a particular so you won't see them in wages, because they're
Because
maybe,
they're
they
working
either
over-
left or.
They're
what-
in overtime shift. Primarily, if someone's sick, you're still gonna pay them their wage. It's when we're trying to fill their shifts, it's primarily majority of it, it's mostly like a 70-30 overtime to a reserve officer. So that balance is
If you
typically.
had Officer Washington or somebody leaving, then you
She's
take some
vacant.
time, so that
one
the
was
salary's
totally
down.
vacant. Even
But the
though
overtime
her
we have to
salary
cover
was
hers.
still there.
We still have to cover
hers.
as well.
We were still, we had her payouts and so forth into September. And then there was a portion of her salary left, but we still went many, many months before a new officer came in to replace
But you had to
that.
cover her shifts with the overtime.
Exactly.
And
So
why was that, no one,
Well, we have to go through that process of hiring. It takes, there's a long process.
Yeah.
So the
No.
officer came in January. However, we had 4 or 5 months in training. This person could not work alone. So regardless of that, we still had the body present, the salary was being used. However, we still needed to replace Officer Washington's shifts on top of the new officer at the same time. So for that reason, a person can't work by themselves or be an in-charge officer until they're fully trained. So, so that was a training curve that we went through from January through probably May
And that
that
includes the
year.
whole gamut from advertising for a position to the actual selection process, the testing,
Yeah.
the hiring, and
yeah,
the
I was looking, for ways to cut down on overtime, but
On that particular year, we had those variables.
That was a tough year.
How much sick time do you build in? Because if somebody's sick, you have to pay somebody overtime
Well,
to
I
cover that
pretty much,
shift, right?
I try to be very, I allot, for full-time officers, I allot them 4 sick days
And how do we do?
and
how do
3
we do
incentive days if you don't take, see, we have those incentives. If you don't take sick time, we give you that day off, so many in each quarter, which is new in their contract now. But I only give, our budget 32 hours per officer
What,
for sick time.
what's the maximum in the contract that's allowed? Is there a maximum amount of sick time?
I don't know that verbiage is, if they take no sick time for a quarter, they get like a day off, but if someone's sick, they're sick.
I'm just asking, how do we know that
How many
somebody's
sick days?
abusing sick days?
Oh, abusing.
Yeah, I mean, is somebody at
I
10
think-
days and they're only allowed 4 and then you?
Right,
We're
it's spelled out in the contract how many they're actually allowed. And we have not had that issue as far as
Okay.
sick day abuse. They don't use a lot of sick time.
I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking, speculating, like,
We
how
get
do you
doctor's
know?
notes and that, it's a lot of
Yeah.
follow-up involved. Family, medical, things of that nature, it still comes under sick time. Those are, things that come up out of nowhere. We can't plan for that, obviously. But I do try to plan for the average person being out 4 days, 4 shifts a year.
To cover
For
the
sick
overtime.
time, if they are sick or a family member's sick.
And it's not that they take that automatically. that's
No,
just-
but you have to budget for budget
Right.
purposes.
We have the small necessity needs too, if the child is sick and so forth, the parent needs to.
They're actually entitled to 15 sick days a year, but in the new contract, we actually have a clause in there where we incent them to not use sick days, and it actually can save us money in the long run by doing that.
But I
I
don't,
wonder if it was similar to the school contracts where you have so many sick days and when you use them, that's it, you don't get paid for anything.
But the greater point is,
cover.
The maximum is 15, and Lorraine is assuming
We only
4.
four.
So
We don't
there's a
budget
lot.
this.
There's-
Right.
right,
If we
okay.
did, our
And we
budget
have not,
would
the
be
chief is right, we have not seen
ginormous.
a use within the department.
Well, you must not even see
No,
them,
you
people
must
taking
never.
them if, I mean, that could cause the overtime being, skewed,
We're
or
pretty
kind of difficult to anticipate.
We're
if you-
pretty cognizant of people out on sick, if it goes on for a period of time, of course, we're concerned.
Mm.
And again, there's removal
And there's
protocols,
disability.
phone calls
Yeah.
and things to make sure.
Generally, other than, somebody maybe being out for a day or two with the flu, which really isn't that common either. It would normally be like an injury if somebody's out for
Mhm.
a week or 2 weeks with a sprained wrist or something, but we are blessed with a non-sick problem within the department.
Very
And so
much
it's,
so.
and I have seen other departments now within the town where that is an issue. And we're fortunate, we have a dedicated group of professionals. When they're sick, and when they're not, they're here, so.
No, I just use it as an example of, there is a science with regards to planning overtime. One of the many variables is an assumption on how many days somebody will be sick and what you'll need to cover. I'm assuming one of the variables is road detail and, instances where you have some sort of an event where you need to call in some additional, people need to work additional hours, and just trying to get a feel as to sort of how much science we put into.
Well, we try to be
Detail.
very careful based upon these types of questions. When we come in and are asked, why is this so high? So we try to be, in presenting you, this is the process that we are currently using with the 4 days. Based upon
And
that.
just to, so when we look at 2013, the actual, I'm just gonna use the total budget, was the actual $810,000 versus an $863,000 budget. When you made the budget, you based it on people being there, not but anybody leaving, and, your best estimate as to,
And
you didn't know
also-
that Officer Washington was gonna leave, and
Exactly.
and you based it on all of that, and you're doing the same, I assume, you've done the same for the 2014, and are now doing the same for the,
Exactly.
which is 2015 is very close to 2014, so not even really that concerned. So that you're doing it based on who you have, who you expect to have, what your best estimate is, what the situation, and you can't tell if somebody's gonna leave, or somebody's gonna get injured, or if you're gonna have to cover this overtime, and that skews it one way, either you're over budgeted or under budgeted.
Right, in our actual experiences. We know, for example, if we have a particularly severe crime, we have to bring additional officers in, maybe to cover crime scenes, to print some photographs. If we have accidents at shift change, where we need an extra officer to stay over. All these things, we can't plan for them, because
No.
it's like the fire department with fires. They can't predict how many fires they're gonna have. So we have to make our best estimate based on actual experience, on what's happened in the past and past years. Some things come up that we're aware of. For example, the parades in town. We know that there are going to be 4th of July parades in town. We know that there are going to be the Halloween parades, the baseball parades, etc. We know we'll need to bring extra people in for
Or your
those.
school resource officer now, they have to cover
Correct.
that person with
Yeah.
overtime,
Exactly.
So,
even though you're gonna get it
we
reimbursed.
really, our business is intangible. I wish it was more tangible, but a lot of times we have to make our best estimate. And as I said, what we do, Lorraine has her formulas that she builds in for budgeting purposes. And I think historically, they've been pretty close to actual. We know we do not have, at this time, a problem with sick time. 5 years from now, maybe we could. But a lot of that, and a lot of what we do is based on what happens, our experiences, and the staff and the personnel. We know our staff, so we know what areas.
And you're fully hired now, and you have everybody that you need? Or
Well,
are you
we're,
not?
we're still not fully funded from the 4 and 2 schedule from years ago. So we're not quite there yet. And I just want to add, when Officer Washington left, it was under very good circumstances.
Yes, yeah, no,
She
I mean,
transferred to a
be
department
nearby.
out of state to be her family, yeah.
Okay, so back to the wages line. I understand that it was budgeted high because, and I remember this discussion now, that we were going to carry that officer for a full year until we saw how things played out.
And, right.
Currently in fiscal 14, through the end of January, you had 338 still unspent, $338,000. But if you carry the run rate of the first 7 months, that puts you about $50,000, gives you a surplus of about $50,000. So if I take the amount you spent through January and divide by 7 and then multiply by 5, that comes in at 250 as opposed to 338. So I'm not questioning your fiscal 14 budget, but I'm saying with that run rate, is it really appropriate to keep it at the 688 or the 702 for fiscal 15?
Well, what we have within here, because we don't have that officer that we were fully funded for in fiscal year 13, included here. However, there were 2 increases in sergeant rank which occurred. And then we also have a new patrolman where we're still short a person because of that officer in fiscal year 13 not being there anymore. So I do have a patrolman step 1, new patrolman's budgeted in the budget, which is currently there.
And you're going through all of fiscal 14 without being able to fill that position?
No, when I came into 14, we still had the officer here.
Okay.
He was still in there without.
2015, right?
I need to, yes, I don't have, I'll have a thought here in a moment, I'll see if I brought that back up. However, coming forward into this fiscal year, we no longer have that person listed here. However, we do have a new patrolman who has come down to the bottom rung at step 1. So that's where, when you look at the total wages of the whole group of full-time officers, they pretty much have been pretty level. Primarily when we brought in 2 additional sergeant ranks starting in fiscal year 13, they are assuming higher wages too because they're at a greater step. So we had that one sergeant who was the only sergeant at the time with a large salary. Then we brought up 2 additional sergeants. They're still not at top step yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we absorbed those funds from that initial sergeant. This was internal rank only. It was a promotional thing. With the residual left over, based upon what you're describing here, we have this officer.
So you might hire
step 1.
somebody
This
in-
is what I'm proposing in 15. With the regard of remembering that in fiscal year 14, I just need to find that. I do have that back up here.
So
I brought it with me.
I thought at the beginning you were
asked.
saying that this was an open position that you needed to fill. And now what I'm hearing is that you're looking to increase headcount.
Well, Sergeant, the officer in fiscal year 13, we had talked about
Right.
bringing that person in, a new full-time officer to bring our 4 and 2 on par, meaning that our right of first refusal of overtime, we'd have another body to cover all those open shifts.
We're not looking to increase budget or
No.
headcount. We still have a void due to the 4 and 2,
4 and 2.
where that requires overtime, and we have the opportunity to bring on a step 1 patrolman to fill that void, which should eliminate quite a bit of overtime, or should eliminate some overtime. I don't want to
Okay, but it's
overemphasize.
not an increase to headcount.
The
Well,
It's not an
staffing,
increase to budgeted
Budgeted
headcount.
headcount.
budgeted headcount.
But if a patrolman at step 1 is replacing, on a traditional run rate basis, if a step 1 patrolman is replacing a higher ranked person, all things being equal, salary should go down.
Well, it did when we also had 2 promotions.
Okay,
We
so there's
had-
more than
Yes,
offset.
there's more offsets which have
reduction?
occurred over the last 2 fiscal years, because the sergeant in question from fiscal year 13 had top step, and then we brought in sergeant number 1, who went through the promotional process, and then just this year, sergeant number 2 has come in, and we've used, because we funded sergeant in fiscal year 13, we were able to absorb those step increases and try to keep parity within our current budget without too many bumps. And that is the reason why you see money at the end of the year not being expended, primarily because we were still had that top step sergeant funded amount in there.
That's
So how many sergeants are there?
We have two. I just want to clarify,
Yeah,
the
sounds
the
like-
sergeant's positions are not new.
Supervisors.
They're not new.
Could you take us down through the rank,
Okay.
right from the top?
You probably did this before, but.
Oh, okay. All right, there's myself, the lieutenant, right? We have two sergeants. The sergeant's positions are not new. The sergeant's positions were here even before I came. There was turnover, there was transition within the sergeant's positions. We went for a period of time, quite a long period of time, actually, with no sergeants, and we paid for it administratively. We need that level of supervision out there in the field.
So when did these two sergeants come in? So one came in, one's new in 2014?
Right, that's Sergeant Lou Camberg, and actually, I think
He
Lou
actually
started in
came in-
2013.
He came in at the end of 2013,
Yeah.
April of 2013. He had, he became a sergeant step. It was like almost like a lateral move from
Okay.
patrolman to sergeant. It was a little bit more, step 3 sergeant. And then he's gone through those step increases on an annual basis. And this year, Kim DeNaro became
Sergeant
sergeant.
Barrett, Kim Barrett.
That's right.
Right, yes.
Kim
Yeah,
Barrett.
so there aren't, as I said, there are no new sergeant positions. They're simply positions that we finally got a chance to fill. And the two sergeants that were existing were at a higher grade. They were senior sergeants. They were at the top step level. The two new sergeants started at the entry level sergeant.
So how many levels of sergeantry?
Sergeant.
I mean, so you have a peer, right, I mean, this tier for sergeants as well.
Well, it's,
So-
the grade is the grade, but they have steps within the contract that are
Okay.
laid out.
Oh.
In other words, it's sergeant step 1, sergeant step 2. There's no difference as far as the rank itself.
Okay.
They're just the steps like the patrolmen have built into the schedule as well. And then moving down the roster, we have the patrolmen, the full-time patrolmen, which we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the full-time patrolmen.
9? No, yeah,
Lieutenant.
yeah.
Yeah, well, lieutenant is in there as well.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the new,
And
we're
then the
hoping
new
that
patrol, right. The new schedule
we've
in there.
had the 10, it's just that sergeant in fiscal year 13, he's no longer here, so. And so that's what we're at right today.
So you have one
And see, with this full-time staff,
Two
Yeah,
current,
that is
yeah, supervisory.
Everybody should be looking at that. If you can find it on your, this then shows 2014, you see a patrolman vacant in 2014 at no salary, and then if you show them in 2015, that was step 1, 1897. So that's, they're getting still there.
When I see step 4/5 and then 2 wages, are they increasing the step mid-year? or
Yes,
is that-
exactly,
is that
just
the
so we have like a grasp on, yes, even in my own personal breakdown, I do that, I break by dates. That way we have,
Oh, this, yeah.
you know, how many weeks at one rate, how many weeks at another.
yeah, it breaks from mid-year.
Yeah.
And then we have the part-time staff, the reserve officers. We have 5 reserve officers that are on staff.
And they're all top step right now, so they're all, it's the same rate
Yeah,
that I calculate at.
most of the staff, which is good, retention-wise, they've been here for quite a period of time. So that increases our costs naturally because they're all at the higher steps. So again, going back to the new patrolman position, it's, when the 4 and 2 was agreed to in the contract years ago, it was never fully funded, and it was sort of a wait and see, we'll see how it goes. And a lot of that overtime, there are shifts that are, if you were to look at our schedule, you would see shifts that are actually blocked out where there are holes in them. Those have to be filled by overtime. If we were to plug in this part-time officer, or the full-time officer position that we just spoke of, that would actually plug in those holes and put us where we've really needed to be for quite a period of time.
So is it just, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's just, is it just matter now of hiring somebody, because you've got them in the budget?
Well, we actually, we've explored a number of options, and we actually have a plan which would make a lot of sense to us. We have a reserve officer who is in the full-time academy right now, and he'll be graduating and be a very attractive candidate. He'd be fully trained. If we were to, when he graduates in April, he paid for his own academy. He self-sponsored himself. He put himself through the academy, a total of expenses of close to $5,000. He's currently a reserve officer, a part-time officer. If we were to, upon his graduation, plug him into that slot, that would fill the overtime for us. It would also eliminate the need for about $1,000 worth of advertising in newspapers and on the computer when we have to hire. It would eliminate any need for training. It would eliminate any need for on-the-job training. About $1,500 for psychological testing, which is one of our requirements, and he's fully equipped already. He's basically a free person.
Well, let's not forget, there are other costs associated with adding somebody.
Right, we understand that, basically the fringe benefits would
We're
add
in the
to
ask
that.
stage right now.
Yeah, so that's something we've been reviewing because it would really help cut down on the overtime for those empty blocks. So we looked at it, it appears feasible financially, and it does not add to the total department headcount. It's simply changing the status of a department member.
Well, I'd be curious to see a breakdown of how much it will cost minus all the things you just mentioned, plus the fringe benefits, and then
The
compare
effect on
that to how much
overtime.
overtime would go down
Yeah.
to truly see if it's.
Are you having trouble filling the overtime?
It depends. In the summertime, when there's a lot of details, it can be challenging. Because we only have, that's our problem, there are only so many officers in the bucket. And, when you have the shifts arise, those officers are entitled to vacation. They're senior officers, they're on the high end.
And I've noticed we have officers from Berlin,
Working the
Lancaster,
details, yeah.
and sometimes
Yeah,
even
fill the
Boxborough,
details.
I think,
Mhm.
come in and help out with that stuff.
Right, and our officers generally don't go out of town to work details, so.
Well, not with all the overtime
No, there's
available here.
plenty of work, that's for sure. So it all boils down to the number of officers in the pot, because that drives the overtime significantly. Because if one officer's out and we need to fill that shift, there aren't enough to spread it around. So that's an option that we've been looking at.
And at the bottom of the salary history request here, where it says vacant unfilled positions for reserve officers,
Well, we are making, I don't count them, I only count 5 reserves, but we
Okay.
are able to hire up to 7. So that's why I put them in there too, just
Okay.
as a head count.
Okay.
However, when I do budget for
you only
hours,
budget for 5.
I only budget for 5,
Okay.
exactly.
And at this point, we feel if we're able to look at that position, we may not need any more reserve officers.
Okay.
We would be able to deal with what we have,
You
so.
could do with 4.
I've done a fairly lengthy review with Chief Alfano, and it's going to be my recommendation to the selectmen that we bring on that we transition that officer from reserve to full-time.
I mean, it's always a benefit to reduce the overtime.
It is. It's a
Oh, of
huge
course.
benefit.
It's easier for us too, if it's.
Isn't it also cheaper to maximize the capacity of reserve officers because you're paying them a lower rate?
Reserve officers take 30% of the overtime, and
Yeah.
Is a
It's
formula.
Yeah.
a formula contract,
Got it.
so.
And when we get into midnight shifts and so forth, a lot of them don't want it. So they have the choice to say no.
The reserve officers?
Reserve.
Yeah, see, the reserve officers all have day jobs, so to speak. I mean, they have careers. We have, financial CFOs of corporations that are reserve officers. They're a very talented bunch, but they have another job. And, they can help us out on weekends a lot, but other than that, we have to rely on the full-time staff. And the level of service, the reserve officers are outstanding, every one of them to a person. But they don't do it as much
Right.
as a full-time officer. So the full-time officers are
Much
more
better,
experienced. There's less supervisory follow-up with full-time officers because they know what they can do.
And aren't you gonna have, if you do make that move, aren't you gonna have better control over your budget? I mean, it just seems like you're going to, if you know.
Of course we are.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The overtime would be more predictable because My goal is to make overtime an exception as opposed to part of the rule. And right now, it's part of the
Part of the
rule.
rules,
Because
we have the budget for it.
we have to budget for it. To me, overtime is the exception for people being out sick, people being on
Mhm.
vacation,
But you have to cover your,
But
extraordinary events.
it's been going on for years, and are you gonna get some pushback? Because people who have been expecting a certain level of income aren't gonna have it available to them anymore?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so, because we can't fill it all now. So
Okay.
there are times when we have to run, which I do not like to do, there are times when we have to run shifts not completely filled because we can't fill the shift, especially last minute.
And the contract just stipulates the formula in which you offer overtime. It doesn't stipulate that you have to have overtime to offer.
No, we don't have, I know what you're saying, you're
Yeah.
talking about mandatory shift staffing. We don't, fortunately, that's not in the contract, but my operating rule is if we can have 2 officers minimum a shift, we need to have that because I don't want anyone working alone out there. It's just, our activity level it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
And bear in mind, the reserve officers are only required to work 3 shifts a month.
There's no mechanism.
3 shifts is an 8-hour.
Yes.
Yes.
They have to work 24 man hours a month.
A month.
So you could get along, Chief, if you had 4 reserve officers?
If we could make that adjustment with that officer, making that part-time officer a full-time officer, that would fully staff the shifts. And the staffing that we have now on reserve officers will be sufficient. I wouldn't want to put any more on. Because again, that adds to training. You have to provide them with uniforms, firearms, et cetera. That we would be sufficient with what we would have right now.
The reserve pool would lower the amount
Yeah.
of shifts available
Right.
because of the new full-time officer.
Right.
So Don's gonna make that recommendation, which you just said, which is fine, but
Is it
I
considered?
don't know how, I'd like to see the incremental analysis to see if I can get my head around that too, right? We need to do that.
Oh, sure.
Well,
See
I
the-
mean, we're comfortable, yeah, I mean, we're comfortable we can cover it within the police budget, and I think whatever we add to fringe, we have other offsetting benefits, so.
You know, I believe it, I just haven't seen it.
So
that's
can,
okay.
is that something you can do?
But I am making the
Oh, sure.
recommendation to the board.
We
How can you
haven't,
make the recommendation without looking at the numbers?
I have looked at the
we
numbers.
have.
We have.
So we just don't have them?
No, I wasn't prepared for that tonight, so I was prepared just for what we had presented.
So if that's something you can send, to us.
Don has already asked me to prepare something for him, so,
Okay.
and then I met with him last Thursday, so.
Good.
But if that recommendation is being made, that would change this budget. It would change the line items, it wouldn't change the total is what I'm hearing, but we would want to do that before before we lock this down, right? Or no, or does anybody care?
Well, I'm just wondering, so
Anytime.
right now, it's showing the reserve officers are 2138 rate, and this person, that the patrolman vacancy is showed at step 1, 1897. That wouldn't happen.
No,
It'd be
it
at
would
2138. Yeah.
Exactly. And
So-
that I've already taken into consideration, so without
But
having.
you have funded for the patrolman then?
At 1897.
At step 1 with,
Right.
So it's probably over
the
budget.
reserves coming in.
But not by law, because your reserve officers, you're only budgeting 24 hours a month anyway.
Right.
And this person would be 40.
Well, one thing to remember, not just that, those are the shifts that they're required to work. Reserves also have the option to agree to work all the
Overtime.
the overtime, not the overtime,
We
the
budget
vacation
for more
and
than
sick.
24 hours a month. They're only
Yes.
required to work 24
Okay.
hours a month.
Right, however, we do include them in the calculation for, in the event they take, people who are on vacation or sick time. Those backfill hours I calculate what, percentage goes to full-time officers, the percentage goes to reserves.
So I guess what Randy's saying here, and it's, as part of our charge, is when you prepare this, that you're preparing for Dawn, if you can send it on to Linda, she can send it on to us, and we can take a
Oh,
look
sure,
at it before. And that, if that's done, that should be done next week?
Mhm.
This week? Next week? Okay. Do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
school resource officer.
Yes.
Yes.
You have it listed here as the school paying 50%.
Yeah.
The school has agreed to pay 100%.
Well, this is going back to what we sent in November,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And however, the tide has turned a little bit on that one.
Okay.
However,
The thing I would just like to make sure we do is that we burden the school with the actual cost. There's nothing in our agreement with the school that says, whatever it is, 24,500, whatever, that's the price. It's whatever it's gonna cost
Exactly.
us each year.
that was
They need
this
to be
year.
notified of
That
that.
agreement was
Okay.
this year. However, preparing this was based upon the full scope of it, because we have to be fully funded to pay the officer.
Right. So it wouldn't matter to your budget anyway.
So the question
Just
is,
wanna make sure you're
yes,
Well,
they're
what we
burdened
build
properly.
They-
What we build.
yeah,
Exactly.
so what,
we
so what is
build
that,
it
do you know what that
on
number is?
The total number?
Yeah,
Or the reserves?
Yeah, for the school resource
school
officer,
resource.
Oh,
because that,
oh, I got it. With, it's coming up roughly, if I reduce this by 45, this is a rough, it's coming around, like 26, and I'd have to look at it specifically broken down.
could you do that and then send
Yep.
that off to us too, because
So
that.
you can see exactly what that dollar amount is for the SRO.
Mhm.
Versus, we could, if it was backfilled for the entirety of a full-time officer at overtime, it's like, the officer who's the SRO, that's their flat salary. It's the backfill of those shifts that
Right.
officer
But I don't know what
vacated.
goes up to.
So if I go up,
It
so,
should, we're filling positions using overtime.
exactly,
Right,
so
and that's
full
what-
That's
over,
what we should
I
be
can tell you, so the
invoicing
full,
the school
okay, the
department
full
for.
overtime is 31,946, so that's the number you wanna think about.
For fiscal 14 or 15?
For 15,
Okay.
yes, that's
So
the
we need-
total
we need to do
We need
overtime.
to give the
Our
school
share?
district a heads up on that increase.
100%. And
Well, they're paying 100%, but of course we'll pay, we'll pay our percentage of it, because it's gonna flow through the NRSD.
Right, so
Budget,
that's
they're
what I'm
just-
asking, is
yeah.
that amount?
and it
Yeah.
goes without saying that the overtime that's required to backfill that is a blend of different salaries over time, and you
I
have some
break it
sort
Could
of.
be
down.
reserve, could be full-time.
If not the reserves for overtime, if it goes to a reserve officer, of course it's gonna be less than that, and that's where I was saying, well, maybe I really don't know what that 70-30 split is off the top of my head. But if you go fully overtime, I do budget 80% to patrolmen, and then I have to think of the sergeants. I have 2 sergeants at a higher rate, so I get 10%, so I have to calculate in those terms.
Okay, so that's
So
your budgeted amount for the.
You would use the 31,946, I would use that as a firm number
Okay, so we'll
at
change
this
that.
point, and that is included in our overtime,
Okay, yes,
Good, good,
as
good.
it should be.
yes.
Right.
So we're not billing them for benefits though.
That's correct.
No, no
No.
fringe.
No. It's basically the replacement cost.
Correct. So it's still costing us more though.
Yes, but
Well, we
if
got
they
the car,
pay
we got everything.
then they get more say over the, disposition of those resources, and I think we're better off having the final say in that.
Right, because we need to remember the officer works for the town of Bolton.
Right.
Well, that's what I
They're
was
assigned to
thinking,
the
right.
school, but they're actually employees of the town of Bolton also. And we've had no issues with that program, by the way, that's been nothing but outstanding.
Yeah.
Do we have I'm sorry, the labor, do we have an agreement that if there's some sort of an emergency that the resource officer can get pulled?
Oh, absolutely,
Right,
absolutely, it has
that's-
happened,
yeah, okay.
it has happened.
Well, it's only for 20 hours a week, so which 20
No, it's
hours?
24 hours?
24
Yes.
hours a week.
Mhm.
So which 24 it is
Got it.
Day
That,
shift,
it's
yeah.
not common, but especially if we have emergencies at the school, the officers can be supplemented by the road officers. We had a terrible pedestrian accident right outside the school a few months ago, and one of the first responders there was the school resource officer, because they're right at the high school. So even though they're assigned to the high school, they're still police officers. We try to keep them there naturally, but if they have to run out, they have that ability.
And I think you see the success of this program, because at Tri-Town, when this was raised, all the towns were in favor of it, the school district was in favor of taking on, where last year was 50-50
Right.
split, this is the 100%.
Oh, I was tickled pink when I heard that.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask them for that initially, and then that was great. So that worked out
We
well.
did. Any more discussion on the above the line, the wages and salary disability insurance as yours, Dan, and everything else, so. Okay?
Okay, moving into expenses. Again, we were asked to level fund, and in just about every case here we did. I'll go down through it. In 2014, for building expenses and services, we budgeted $3,000.
I think that's hired service. We don't have anything in building expenses.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
gonna fall
Oh,
off
I
next
see the
year.
wrong column
Yep.
there.
I do that all the time.
It'll be better.
Yeah, that one's a little
It's
different.
on, right here, if you look at that tab, and it's upside down.
So it's
That might help you.
3,000 for your hired services, which are all your physicals, and that's all state mandated, is that right?
Right, and that's, well, a lot of that is driven by hiring too.
Mm.
If we need to hire new staff, the psychological test and physicals, those are all required.
And service instructor.
And in-service instructors, if we were to bring in an outside instructor for in-service, which we try not to do very often, but sometimes we can do that.
Okay.
And again, we're asking to level fund that. Cruiser repairs. This is an area,
Our next would be training,
Training.
which is 4,000
Mhm.
level funded.
Right, and we're looking to level fund that again as part of the directive. We did spend a little bit more on that in FY13 on the training. I know we had a number of officers go to instructor schools on that because we do our own in-service training.
We're overspent already this year, too. That-
Well, what happens with training, it's almost like everyone dives in and wants to be trained, and then we shove them off, you know? It's like-
There's only so much money in
We
the
do our
pocket.
in-service
Yeah.
training, which we do, we fund that, and we do it in-house at the training play, and that's when we bring the instructors in, and we do have officers who have been in the train-the-trainer program. So all those mandated requirements of training we do in-house, and the wages are what we're budgeted for to compensate all that.
And we have a large proportion of the officers are instructors, the area experts, and they're actually criminal justice training council instructors. So they have to be recertified to maintain their trained status. So that would be included in that.
So you feel that that's, you're not cutting off anybody to the detriment of their having the experience they need to do their...
Well, no, because a lot of training is through the Mass Police Training Council at no charge. And that's, we look at those, do budget those hours for training, which is included in wages, so that's where that's covered.
Okay.
Some of the we always look for the zero,
The courses are free,
it's
but
like,
we have to pay.
how much does it cost, is usually the question down the hall, how much is this gonna cost? And then we look to see, can we afford it at this time, or do we need to wait till next fiscal year?
Okay. Lockup, that's level funded. I don't think unless you want to go through that.
Depends on how many criminals
Yeah,
we have.
we've actually been pretty close on target
Yeah,
on that.
18, yeah.
I don't limit arrests, I mean, they can make as many arrests as they want, they had 2 this weekend, as a matter of fact. So we don't, again, that's unpredictable, there
Yeah.
never seems to be a shortage of bad guys and girls out there. We're comfortable with leaving that figure where it is.
Okay.
And again, our actual's pretty close to that, so.
Okay, and it's been running, yeah. Okay, the next is supplies, and this is level funded at 6,100.
We're running about 4,000.
Now, this got a little confusing. Now, can you tell us again what is in supplies? This is supplies for the vehicles or for office?
It's for the, not office supplies.
No office.
This is to support the police, meaning that it would be anything for the cruisers. We're
First
coming
aid,
back.
et cetera.
Well, I have to come back, supplies could be like stamped envelopes. That's something like for the police department we do. Alarms, we have to send out a lot of notifications. We have to buy supplies of stamped envelopes.
Can we get out the word repairs from this line item? It confuses everybody.
Okay.
Because this has nothing to do with repairs, this is just supplies, right? There are no repairs in this, am I
And
correct?
supplies?
And in 5,400.
Which one is 5,400?
You have repairs, cruisers, and 53.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
5,400 is regular police. It just says supplies?
Well, on ours, it says supplies/repairs, but I don't think it is repairs.
No,
No,
we
there's
don't
no
have any
repairs.
repairs. It's primarily to support the cruisers. It could be all the jump packs. We have to replace all the
That's
medicals.
funny because the current expenditure ledger
It just goes on. We have
This says
Any
supplies and
purchase has to
repairs.
do, bail out bags, strobe, there's certain aspects that, there's, portable strobes, things like that that are not like attached to the car. Keys, and anything that, one thing that comes out of here is for our radar to be recertified, all those little tuning fork things, they come in to make sure what the officer's all has to be, and that's all done through the state police. All that calibration, ID credentials through the state of Massachusetts, all those little things, that we charge that through the police supplies. Police only, police, no office supplies,
No office
no
supplies.
building supplies, no
Okay.
paper towels, nothing like that.
Got it. That's good.
It's very specific.
Okay. And then firearms supplies, it's again often driven by new hires?
No, firearms is actually, you going down 5460?
Yeah,
The firearms line item?
5460, yeah.
That is actually the actual firearms account. The bulk of that is ammunition. Ammunition is very expensive. The price, there's a huge ammunition shortage throughout the country.
Oh,
A lot of it's driven by,
The Obama
artificially
administration.
by people being afraid
I-
firearms are gonna be banned, so everybody's
Fear factor
hoarding
thing,
and
right,
stocking up on
really,
ammunition.
right.
That actually has
That's
trickled
state
down and
Connecticut.
affected the police.
Terry, any opportunity?
I know, you got
Yeah,
it.
so you know, you can tell.
He's been waiting the whole
So
night
people
to
are
say
turning to
that.
rock salt now, and that's why there's a shortage of that too?
Yeah, they're hoarding that too. In the firearms account, for example, our targets, when we go to the range, our targets are included in that. If we have to replace a firearm, if we have a firearm that's worn out, that's included in that.
There was quite a discussion last year about firearms. You're in good shape with what you have now,
Well,
at
once
least
we-
that's what you said
The
last
ones we
year.
have now, they're 8 years old. I think we can get by this year with them okay, but I think next year we're gonna have to start looking at, possible replacements. They're still perfectly safe, they're still perfectly fine. We don't plan on replacing anything this year, as long as they're in good service. We have, several of the officers are trained as department armorers. We sent them to school, they can actually fix the guns and adjust them if they have to. That saves us a lot of money, we don't have to go out to professional gunsmiths. The biggest expense, as I said, in the firearm is ammo.
Ammunition.
Do we, with the rising cost of ammunition, which I've read about as well, how do I ask this question? Obviously, we want our officers to go to the range and practice being proficient with firearms. I think that's obviously a good thing. I'm sure there's a minimum amount of time that they need to spend.
There is, it's mandated by law.
Do we monitor but I'm sure that they could go to the range anytime that they wanted to.
Well, it's controlled.
I don't know.
We don't just say, here, here's 500 rounds of
Yeah,
ammunition.
no, I'm just, that's essentially what I'm asking.
Right. If an officer wants to practice and asks the lieutenant, say, for a box of 50 rounds of ammunition, if we have it, the lieutenant will grant that to him because that's practice and we need it. The training council, Municipal Police Training Council also increased, again, unfunded mandates. They increased the amount of training we must do and the number of rounds fired with firearms. And they don't fund it, they don't pay for it, but they tell us we have to do it. So we actually have to spend more range time out there each year now. We have to go out twice a year. Another area that, because of the rising cost of ammunition, we really didn't get to do it as much this past year. But we would like to get back into the simunitions training. Simunitions are, we actually have these firearms that we purchased a number of years ago. They shoot, it looks like a blank, almost like a paintball type round. It's got detergent in it. The officers would wear helmets, they're well protected. And when these plastic bullets, so to speak, when they hit, they leave a mark, so you know whether you've actually hit your target or not. The weapons are scale models of the ones we actually carry, so they fit right in their holsters. It is the best, the most realistic, and the most effective training for the officers. We do conduct it as part of my cost savings, because we really need to, I won't use the term get the most bang for our buck out of our firearms budget, but we've linked up with the Lancaster Police Department, and we actually do joint firearms training with them. We share training days, and we share instructors. Our instructors will help them, their instructors will help us. It's been a great I mean, we do all this talk about regionalization and sharing of resources. It's worked out really well. It's worked out well for Lancaster, it's worked out well for us. And we want to continue doing that. We actually practice in schools during vacations with the Lancaster Police response to a school shooting. God forbid we ever have to go to that. The schools have been very cooperative with letting us use their facilities. So this is included in that figure for next year, and I really want to, as much as we can afford to do, that's the best training. I do have to add that police-involved shootings have, over the past year, climbed extraordinarily.
You mean in the state, not in Bolton?
In New England.
In New England.
New England. To about on average one a week now in New England, and that's an
That's
officer.
what I was gonna ask, yeah.
Either an officer being shot at or an officer having to use their firearm. So it's getting to be a dangerous place out there. And I really I want to do the best job we can with having our officers be prepared should they ever have to use their firearms.
Where do you train? Where do you shoot? Do you have to
We
walk
actually,
to a
we
place, or-
have two areas. We're very fortunate, we have a very small area up at the transfer station that we've had for years up there. We can't use it obviously when the transfer station's open. It tends to reduce business. We can practice up there, but the hours are very limited. We don't shoot on Sundays up there. We don't go out after dark up there. And then we also, again, part of our sharing, Lancaster has a very small range. It's out in the middle of the woods, but we share their facility with them. But that facility is not usable like now because you can't get out there. It's about a mile out into the middle of the woods. So between those two facilities, we're in real good shape as far as having a place to go. The department years ago, before I came, actually did shoot over at the Harvard Sportsman's, but they were charged.
That's what I remember.
They got charged for it. They charge police departments because they have to. They're in business. So most departments actually have to go to places where they pay to shoot. So we save money there.
What's the place off of Route 70 that's got like those low buildings that are open?
Oh, that's part of Fort Devens.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, we actually,
Their training.
we use we can't use it as a department because it's very expensive. If we went up there as a department, they charge us thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
We do use it for recertifications. The lieutenant and I, for example, were up there a few months ago, did our firearms instructors recertification up there.
Okay.
So it's there, but it's only for courses that are put on by the Criminal Justice
State,
Training
okay.
Council, by the state.
Okay.
We can't just go up and use it. We could, we could rent a bus and send
Fee for
everybody
use.
up there, but it would probably be about $2,500 a time.
Yeah.
And I'd rather shoot it than dump
And
for
I
free.
had no idea who controlled that or.
That's all Devens, it's all Devens,
Okay.
Fort Devens.
Okay, uniforms, that's going up this year.
And that's, again, uniforms are all controlled by the contract. So that, there's a slight increase in that based on contractual arrangements.
Yeah, is that based on what? Just
The contract, that's based on what's
Cost?
negotiated in the contract.
It has. It went up, full-timers are $1,050 a year, reserves are $500.
Uniforms aren't cheap. The pants I'm wearing are $100 a pair. These shirts are $75, and then you have to pay another $25 to put the patches on. So these things aren't cheap.
it just is amazing.
Yeah, the average police jacket is $500 for a police, those yellow jackets you see the officers wearing. So uniforms are really expensive.
Out-of-state travel is, oh, yes, that's, it's coming to the point maybe with this out-of-state travel, this contracted, right?
It's in my contract, right?
And you just, there's nothing we can do about it, it's gotta stay there. And it's gotta be $1,050, it can't be $1 just to keep it in there, or?
It used to be
Well,
double.
it used to be double. The
you-
town's actually getting a bonus if I don't use it.
I know.
No, it's
Well,
another taxpayer.
okay, then dues and subscriptions, that looks like that's been pretty well, it was increased last year to $3,500.
Right,
You used 3,000.
Right, and we
In your-
increased it last year to be more reflective of the
this
actuals.
year.
'Cause,
Absolutely.
yeah,
This year, it looks like you're spending that money too.
those are professional subscriptions of the instructor certification, credentials, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm. And there's a small miscellaneous, which is for what?
Petty cash, pretty much.
Okay,
We try
okay.
to draw out of that. Petty cash we just use for the postage. We want to do a lot of certified mail. We need cash to go.
Mm.
Yeah, especially with the firearms licensing and
Things like that.
And the last thing is the bulletproof vests. Did you, so $1,600, that gets you 2 vests?
Yep, I put in for that, and then
bought them this
waiting
year.
for the federal approval, and then with their guidelines, the 50% from the federals, and then from the state, whereas it's so far behind that the accounting office was in a deficit every time, so this is our second year now using that, so
Right.
I don't know
The
what the
federal government
receipts.
used to pay the bulk of that, and then they cut back.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're left with the burden. And there's a 5-year life expectancy with vests. We
You have to
can't,
renew.
in good conscience, if an officer's vest is due and they come to us, we have to get them a vest, whether the money's there or not.
Yeah.
The state police went through a horrific experience last year because they didn't have the money and they had expired vests, and they were telling their officers, wait till the budget passes next year. So the union went to the Boston Globe, and needless to say, it didn't fare well for the state, and they went out and bought everybody that needed it a vest. So we don't have that issue. We don't want to get into that issue. I mean, the vest is a life-saving piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
And I have a lesser question about oil and lube cruiser.
That's coming up now.
Oh,
No, see, that's coming up, so that's one subtotal we just finished up, which I don't even know, miscellaneous, and now we would be moving on to another subtotal, which consists of repairs to the cruiser, gas, oil and lube, and tires, so,
Well, the oil and lube should have been,
It's gone.
we include that now in cruiser repairs.
Right.
right,
So that's something should just be like,
it's at 0.
I think
Well,
it may be a
It
this
shows
year.
up though as your deficit of $84.70.
I think that
That's
was
a payment.
probably a posting, maybe an error, me writing something down
Oh,
to the accounting
okay.
office.
That's why I
So
was
in-
wondering about that.
Julie
Okay.
posting it and then it coming back to me as being incorrect,
see.
so,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So why are we keeping it alive?
It's
gonna
not
fall
really,
off.
it's gonna fall off, it's just, the last time it was
2012.
in 2012, the $695, but it hasn't been funded, budgeted, or
So no.
it's
It
a,
just allows us to reconcile the
Historical.
totals
the
at the
historical.
bottom, and it'll fall off in a couple more years.
And it's a more efficient way to do it. It's easier for us
Yeah,
to track
no.
too.
It's good.
Mhm.
So in this grouping, we have repairs, which are level funding at
Mhm.
$18,150.
Right, the repairs is really driven by the shape of the cruiser fleet, and I'm sure we'll get into that discussion.
Well, would you want to discuss first? No, we can't.
Why don't we skip that? and
Let's
just
go
do,
down to the
gas and
equipment.
tires.
Yeah, okay,
Right, bodies,
well, it's all
gas.
effective.
Well, gas.
Well, gas, let's talk about gas. Well, yeah.
Okay, gas, as you can see, we level funded at the 24,000. There was a significant increase in gas prices, and I think Lorraine can give you a little bit more
Advisory
detail
did
on that.
transfer $5,000 last
Mhm.
year to cover our gas bills to
Mhm.
June 30th. And we level funded prior to that. So and that's where we are again. Right now, gasoline, if I go to date, I believe we may have a shortfall again
Mhm.
coming
Okay.
based upon that. So we'll know that as the months,
Yeah, I think next time we start the budget process and Don Lowe sends out his letter, I think we should include a statement in there that something like energy costs, you shouldn't assume any price changes. Your budget should only reflect consumption changes that you expect. And because you can't have everybody independently predicting how much gas and electricity and propane and diesel is going to be changing.
But they didn't, they level funded it.
Right.
Oh,
Right,
Yes.
I'm just saying that
But at some point in time.
DPW did.
you know it's not going to go down, it's not going to
Yeah,
go
but
down.
No,
DPW did
that's
do
right.
something in there, and the library did something with electricity, and we should just like we tell people how to deal with the COLAs, we should do the same thing with energy prices next budget cycle.
But then we should still have the discussion, if it was 24 last year and they came for 5, and it's 24 this year, and they're gonna
They come
come
for 5.
for something, is 24 next year the right amount for
Right.
the,
Right,
Yeah. And I don't, yeah, because this year.
It should be based on consumption though.
I mean, it's hard to know because you don't.
Guesses on the prices.
Yes.
Yeah, from an operating standpoint, the consumption is relatively stable. I mean, we know from actual experience about how many miles the cruisers are gonna drive, what the activity is. It's gonna fluctuate, needless to say. But again, there's that variable. We run into the same thing with the building budget, building expenses on electricity and fuel oil. We can't predict what the prices will be, so if you know, certainly any aid you can give us in a tool or anything to do that.
No, I
The
just,
only thing we can do is track commodity prices over the past 5 years. Those are not in gas and oil an indicator of future.
Yeah.
This is a
Right.
It's
difficult line.
political and there's so many
we
things
should
affected.
just tell
Leave
you
it at
not-
24,000.
yeah, tell you not to worry about it in the future, but yeah, 24,000 is, I think, the right number.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've been very good in the past and told us, look, if you need to come to us, what you budgeted. And I think the gas is an example of that, where we really can't predict it, but if we need to come to you, obviously, we can't have a fleet that's parked because we have no gas.
Right.
Yeah.
Are any of these, we'll get to the new cruiser in a second, but is there any hybrid options that are?
This year,
For, are you talking about for police cars? We, I'll discuss it with the cruiser, but we've actually, I won't say it's gone green, but our fleet, when we've designed it that way on purpose, our Dodge Chargers have the two-stage engines where they're a V8, but they actually kick down 4 cylinders when it's idling. And as you know, a lot of police cruiser time is idle time. So, there's one area where we're not using as much gas as with the old Crown Victorias, the Fords, because they were straight V8. The new cruisers that we have online, the Ford Utilities, they're a V6 engine. So 2 vehicles in our fleet right now are V6s. So to address the rest of your question, are there natural gas cruisers out there, electric cruisers? For our application here, they're not practical. There are very few out there that cities primarily may be using, but they're more of a prototype, a test basis. At this point, alternative energy vehicles for us would not be practical at all. It would cost more to buy one and to own one.
And to maintain it.
And to maintain it, and you need fueling sources. We're not going to come over here to town hall and plug in. It's right now, as I said, we're certainly conscious of that. We try to be very green in the public safety building when we design that. We're very conscious of energy usage over there. Same thing with the cruisers. We've gone down to V6s now from the 2-stage V8s, which were really kind of the next best thing. From the big V8s of 4 or 5 years ago, the Crown Victorias. There are other departments out there that are still running all V8 cruisers without that. So if somebody gives us an LNG cruiser to drive around, we've tested them. We have tested them, for free, and wants to donate it, we'll take it. But they're not practical right now.
Good.
Thank you. Can we talk about tires, which always seem to be a difficult conversation?
We level funded our tire budget for the year. Tires, we run 2 types of tires. There's the standard tires for the cruiser. We also equip every cruiser in the wintertime with 4 snow tires, 4, whether they're all-wheel drive or not. We do that because obviously we're out in every kind of weather. So right now, how are we sitting on tires?
Oh, right now we have this balance, however, we're ready for turnover.
Right, because the snows will be coming
Like
off.
50%
Maybe.
spent. And then we're coming into the springtime where we need to replace what we're running.
So when you turn over, you're buying all new tires, is that what happens?
Oh, we
Oh,
have to, because they're worn.
I didn't know if you
Yeah.
took off, this is what I know about tires, so I don't do snow tires, so, it snows in November, you take out the tires, the non-snow tires and put them in a barn somewhere and then.
If they're
Only
still
if they're
good.
viable.
Yeah, if
You know,
they're-
they may
that's-
not
Yeah, if I can save them,
Lieutenant
yeah.
set determination.
Just try to get a
looking
year or
at
2 out of them.
But if-
But a lot of times, the snows are just burned right out.
And they're run constantly, so.
Right. Some of the cruisers that have lesser usage than the other cruisers, you can salvage the snows and get another season out.
Mm-hmm.
And we store those in the Sally Port in the station. You can go over there, there's a stack of them. We also have to be very careful because you never want to plug the cruiser tire, so like in a civilian car, if you got a screw or a nail into it, we can't run plug tires on the cruisers. We have to replace the tires for safety reasons because they're high-speed pursuit rated.
Mhm.
So if a tire has any damage, it's junk, it has to go.
So it looks like your budget looks like it'll be okay this year then? You're sitting with about 3,000
Yes,
left.
I think I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Stand by, we always look forward to July 1 in the event that, meaning that we'll run them and say, we're almost there, and then we can go down to the tire shop.
Yeah, I mean, there
That's
have
like the best day for you, huh?
Yeah, there have been times when, for example, my car, last year, the snow tires were like right on the border of not being any good, but to save money so the line cars could have tires, I basically wore my snow tires till threadbare until July 1st, so
Yeah.
that, you know, the good ones could go on the new cars. So the lieutenant is very good at managing our tires, I never worry about that.
Premise, this could be a very stupid question, but I've heard it before, and I haven't an answer for it. We hear a lot about pursuit rating in vehicles.
Pursue what?
Pursuit rating.
Rating?
Cruisers need to be pursuit rated for high-speed chases, right? The town of Bolton doesn't have very many roads in which you need to achieve a high rate of speed that would kick in a pursuit rating, right? Do you need to have cruisers that are pursuit rated by law, or is it dependent on the demographic in which you're in?
There's a two-part answer to that. First off, the term pursuit rated doesn't mean that you just go out and chase people all day in that particular car. The police cruisers are totally different, the way they're built. They're built totally different than a civilian car. This was from the old Crown Victoria right on down. If you took I'll give you an example, the Ford Interceptor Utilities that we have now, it basically looks just like an Explorer, a Ford Explorer. The body's the same. Everything else on that vehicle is different. There are X-frame roll bars on the inside like racing cars have that the civilians can't buy. All the cooling systems are heavy duty, the radiators are heavy duty, hoses are heavy duty. The braking systems are rated and tested to have braking at certain distances. They're all heavy duty. The suspension's heavy duty, the electrical systems are heavy duty. So the cars may look the same on the outside. It's a totally different car. That's why you'll see a lot of people, that's why old police cruisers, people like to buy them because they're built so heavy duty if they're not run to the ground. So pursuit rating is sort of a misnomer that, you know, people think, well, you're gonna go out and chase somebody. That's the industry standard term that's used, pursuit rated. Now, the second part of that answer is yes, they are rated for handling under severe conditions like a pursuit, because that's why they have the heavy duty brakes. When you're doing a pursuit, you're doing more braking. You're doing harder cornering, you need the harder suspension. So you're right in that term. From a liability standpoint, there's not a police department in the country that runs a cruiser that is not a factory police cruiser for the 911 online cars. You may see, you know, like a specialty vehicle, like a detective vehicle, be a non-police rated car because it's very limited. Unmarked cars, for example, it's in our pursuit policy. Unmarked cars, you know, really shouldn't pursue unless it's an emergency. So you could get away with using a non-pursuit rated, police rated vehicle for an administrative car. Well, you see a lot of times the cities will buy like a regular Ford Taurus for like parking enforcement or the meter maids and things like that. From a liability standpoint, if an officer's out there and an officer does have to get into an emergency driving situation and the car fails, that officer would own the town of Bolton in a lawsuit, guaranteed. I've seen it happen in other communities. It's they're out there doing a very dangerous job. They need specific tools and equipment. The specific tools and equipment that their life depends on are their cruiser, which is also their office, their firearm, their radio, their computer, which tells them that, you know, the person that they've stopped is a bad guy or a bad girl, and their vest. They need those things. That's what they do every day. And every one of those things is specially designed to, number one, protect that officer, and number two, to help them to do their job properly. Because an injured officer is the most expensive thing this town can have. We all know that. We've experienced it. You know, we need to keep the officers safe. So I hope that answered your question.
I've been asked by people why Bolton needs pursuit-rated vehicles when there's very little chance of high-speed chase.
Well, we're up on 495 all the time.
No, but I understand, I'm just, so I
And I-
didn't know the answer.
Yeah, and I think
Myself,
that,
right?
you know-
Pursuit rating takes in a lot more than
Right,
just
I'll
speed.
give you an example. I brought,
No, I'm fine.
okay, good.
this is like a brochure for what we have.
Yep.
Civilians can't buy these, they're not sold for it to the public. In this are all the specs for the police ratings.
Mhm.
Every year, the industry standard for police cruiser testing on the Michigan State Police, they exhaustive tests on every type of police vehicle. And every year they publish these statistics, this is the best vehicle for braking, this is the best for acceleration, this is the best on wet roads. They do the same with tires. The tires that we have right now, our snow tires, were recommended nationally, internationally by the Michigan State Police and tested the best. So, and we buy the cruisers and the tires on the Mass State bid pricing, so we pay a smaller proportion, obviously, of what the vehicles are worth, because we have mass buying power.
So we would move on now to the, your cruiser purchase. We're in a little bit of dilemma because we have not heard yet from capital planning, where it all stands. And you sent us a lot of information. I don't know, do we go through all that now? And, I mean, I think we're probably prepared to do that, right?
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't.
And it's just because we still might have questions on what they're coming in at. So, again, this year you're asking for a vehicle, I imagine it's the same as last year's, it's a all-wheel drive.
Yeah, there's just a quick caveat on the all-wheel drive. Needless to say, we've experienced heavy weather. You know, the snows have been excessive this year. They were the same last year. Road conditions have not been good. All the police chiefs meetings I've been to, and the federal government has said, plan for this to continue. They're not saying it's going to get better. They're saying it's going to get worse. So we would really like to again continue on with the all-wheel drive vehicles. Almost every police department, other than maybe the urban departments like Boston, are going to the all-wheel drive police vehicles. And really, there's two out there now. There's the ones that we purchased recently, the Ford utility SUV, and then the Dodge Charger, which we have in our fleet, is also coming out with this coming year. They're coming out with an all-wheel drive Charger. It's out now for general distribution. So the trend in police services is to go to an all-wheel drive vehicle.
So are you looking for an SUV or a cruiser?
Well, they're similar in price, and so we're gonna continue to test them. Right now, the officers are very satisfied with what we have. And needless to say, they've been getting a real workout in the storms. With the driveways that we deal with in town, we have some driveways in town that are almost a mile long. And to try to get down that driveway in a medical emergency or an emergency, you need the all-wheel drive. We have an all-wheel drive ambulance, fortunately, so we can get out there. The roads are tough in this town in the bad weather. With the volume of traffic that we deal with and the commuter traffic, again, we think it's prudent for any next cruiser purchase, at least till we reach a point where they're stable, to have all-wheel drive vehicles.
So you gave us a list of the cruisers that you have now. Does one leave this? If you buy a new one, does one go away, or
We
trade
Well,
in,
Where did
or
you
whatever?
find that? Where is
Oh, we
that?
sent that to you.
You have it? I can give you
Do you have an extra one?
I do. You can
Oh,
have that.
fantastic,
Sure.
thank
Does
you, I
anyone else need one?
apologize.
You don't have any of that? Okay. Yes, what we like to do is, when we basically take a vehicle out of service, I like to repurpose things if they're safe to do so. We've had cruisers in the past that were unsafe and we had to auction them. We couldn't give them to anybody else. But there are vehicles that would not be suitable for police purposes, but for very limited use around the town, it would be a usable vehicle. I'll give you an example. The car that's parked right up and back there for town hall. That's a former police cruiser. Not fit for the type of activity of driving we do, but certainly fit for the building inspector to take over, to a site in town and take it back. The car that's currently being used right now by the Neshoba cadets, that's a former police cruiser. Not fit for police duty, but certainly suitable for what they need. Harold Brown, the DPW director's car, that's a repurposed police vehicle. To me, it's a win-win situation. If we can take a vehicle out of the fleet, recycle it, and continue the town to get a benefit for it, it's far better than what those cruisers are worth if we auction them. If we auction one of those cruisers, I think the last one we got, what was it, $600? It wasn't even. It's ridiculous. They're worth more in scrap metal. So to answer your question, yes, if we were to rotate a cruiser in, one of these vehicles would come out. If you notice on the notes, car 2, which it's got 127,000.
It's not listed on here, though.
No, that's already out of service.
Okay.
That's kind of in limbo, waiting to see where that's going to go. That's not listed in this.
Okay.
So we have a very, and the lieutenant can certainly, he's our area expert, he's the fleet manager. He has his criteria for rotating the vehicles in the fleet. What we found, and it's always worked for us, is if we have a rotation, and generally it's one car a year, this is the formula that works for us, and a lot of other police departments follows. Usually it's 2 that they replace. What that does is that spreads the wear and tear out and balances out the fleet, so we can take the cars that have the highest mileage or are in the worst condition, put them into a less taxing position, like an administrative car that the officers would take to court or take to classes. And the better cars always stay the line cars, the 911 cars, the response cars.
So it looks like you have 3 vehicles, nearly 4 vehicles at 100,000 miles. Is there a formula on mileage?
Well, there's no formula on mileage. However, what the industry standard is, and this is what Ford Motor Company, General Motors, all the large fleet agencies like the state police, the Michigan State Police, the Mass State Police, California Highway Patrol, agencies that have hundreds of vehicles. The standard is, and I put it on the notes there, the mileage is not an accurate indicator of police vehicle condition. And it's a very difficult concept for non-police people to understand, because you may have, your own personal car might have 60,000 miles on it, but those 60,000 miles are not comparable to the mileage, 60,000 miles on a police car, because of the constant usage. Also, the idle time. Police cars have very high idle time. They're sitting at a call while the officer's inside, the car's running. They're running radar. They're out there doing something. They're at an accident scene. The car is being used. The industry standard is for every 1 hour of idle time, 33 additional road miles should be added to the odometer reading. Now, I can't tell you what. We have no way of tracking idle time, unless I had officers all day with a stopwatch. So what we have to go by is condition. And that's how the lieutenant tracks, and that's how the lieutenant determines what car is going to go where, what car is going to be replaced, what car is going to be repurposed. And also cost. If it's expensive fixing these things, very expensive. We just had a door fall off of one of the older cars. It just came out of the shop last week. It was it $2,500 for that? $2,500 to replace the door. And it wasn't that the hinges on the door broke. It was the skin of the frame that the door hinges are attached to. It was just so worn. It tore. And we have a second cruiser that's doing that now. So that's another $2,500 we're going to have to spend on a door. So
Which models are those?
Those, well, Chargers, the high mileage Chargers. Which cars were those?
3 and 6.
3 and 6. So car 3 and 6 are each going to have a $2,500 new door on them.
So when you're looking at a car that you're marking as fair, ask the lieutenant here, what does that mean to you? I mean, does it mean that it has 1 more year, 2 more years, or how can we?
It's hard to say, because right now they're past their purpose.
These 4 cars, all 4 cars are past their purpose?
They're on the edge of falling off the cliff, and they're safe as can be. The money's been invested into it, so I would put my name on every one of these cars to go out there and do the job. But if we keep sending them out there and they keep racking up the time and the mileage, then I'm just throwing more money away, and the repair bills are more than what the car's worth right now. On a trade, I wouldn't get $500 on a trade right now, anywhere. And I'm spending, most of the time, $800, $1,000 every time I bring it to Colonial in Hudson. So things are starting to fall apart that we normally don't see. The power steering, the rack goes, water pumps, like the chief said, the doors. Just too many times opening and closing, and the skin's peeling right off the door. So I suspect those top 3 cars that are over 100,000, if they keep going out there as a second backup car, they're just gonna start increasing the cost to repair it.
So the game plan, what you were saying before, Chief, was that you're looking for 2 officers on every shift. So 7 o'clock in the morning is the start of a shift. So you got 2 officers on, and they're in the least mileage cars. Is that?
Yes.
That's the game plan. All right. So what are the other 5 cars doing?
Well, the administrative cars are used for officers going to court. You could have 3 officers on duty as well. It could be an overlap shift, so it's not always a fixed 2.
Okay.
One of these is mine, so
Yep.
I'm driving back and forth in that. We have an SRO. The school resource officer uses a cruiser during the daytime at the school, so that's dedicated to that. So these cars they're not constantly in use, but they have to be available. For example, if we have a call close to shift change, there's 2 officers out at the call, or 3 officers out at the call, there's 3 cruisers tied up. The incoming shift is another 2 officers. Well, if they're needed at that call, or they have to get out on the road, they're not gonna sit in the station and just wait. There has to be a cruiser available. In the maintenance condition of these cars, there are times, and actually it's quite frequently now, we'll have 2 cars down at the time for service. So you gotta take 2 cars right out of this equation, and again, try to fit that in. And when the cruisers go out of service, it's not like with civilians where they're in one day and out another. When they're out, they're usually out 3 days to a week on an average. It's very inconvenient when a car's out of service because there are only certain places that will service the cruisers. So what we have to do is, we have to have an officer drive the cruiser there, then we have to have another officer go and pick them up and take them back. And I can't tell you how many hours the lieutenant and I have had to waste recently shuttling cars back and forth. We've even drafted Lorraine to do to shuttle cars back and forth. That's not productive. The town of Bolton isn't paying us to be driving from here to Marlboro to shuttle cruisers around. I mean, that's.
But also in that example, right? So where you had 3 officers out right on the shift change, they're at an accident, and then the other shift is coming on, and they grab a vehicle. When those
if they're available, they will.
Yeah. So if assuming they are, they're not sitting around waiting. They go out, and then when the other 3 are finished with their accident, or 2 of them are, and they end up with a shift, does that new car then just sit for the next shift coming on, or they come back and they could swap. They could swap. I don't want to deal for the next 7 hours with this 120,000 mile car. I want the brand.
The officers have the option. They pretty much can swap out in the car if it's available. They're pool cars. They're in the fleet. What I did for you, which you might find helpful, we actually did a survey of our fleet size, which is 7. Compare it to other departments in the area, and these are the results I came out with. I'll just run through them quickly. And of all these departments, there are some departments listed here that are not as active as us, and there are some departments here that might be a little larger, a little more active. But here's the fleet sizes. We have 7 right now. Stowe, 7. We're more active than Stowe. Call-wise, not that they don't do anything. It's just we just have more calls. Lancaster, 7. Sterling, 9. Northborough, 12. Southborough, 10. Boxborough, 8. Ashland, 17. Wayland, 13. And then Sudbury has 13. So, our activity level is close to a lot of these towns. So fleet size, we're 7 cars, we're either right on the money or actually just a little shy.
Does that carry over to Hillsborough also?
As far as people,
Yes.
we didn't survey people, but some of these departments are similar size, some are a little bit larger.
So, Chief,
Population.
we've talked about a cruiser for many years.
Every
Many
year,
years.
every year.
We tasked capital planning years ago to come up, we could not get our head around the idea of getting a new cruiser in the budget every year, and what's a proper timing, and Brad might recall some of this, but, and I'm sure you do as well, where we ultimately, at some point in time, landed on an every sort of 18-month period. Not sure if that was ever formalized in the policy. I know that I've heard it before, and I know we've discussed it. And so we got into this theoretical conversation about how we would accomplish that in a fiscal year budget that runs, June to May, and it would be difficult to give you half funding one year and then half the other. So we kind of talked about, at least a couple of years, about a 2-on, 1-off type of arrangement, 2 years in a row on, 1 year off, and to effectively accomplish 2 cruisers within the 3-year period, which is about every 18, which is exactly every 18 months. So we've give support. I personally supported one in 13. I supported one in 14. I'm trying to get my head around one in 15, which would be 3 in a row. Do you recall that? You may not have agreed to that agreement, but do you recall that conversation? Has something changed in your mind since that you're coming for another one this year?
Nothing's changed in my mind, but what has changed is what's happening to the fleet. It's deteriorating. I think probably a good way to illustrate it is the lieutenant ran a maintenance study of maintenance activity, and I think this says it all. When we went the year, this goes back 2011, 2012. We went a year where we weren't authorized to buy a cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still paying the price for that, because what that did was that interrupted our cycling, and it put extra strain and extra wear and tear on the rest of the fleet. And I think the best way to analyze that is in 2010 to 2011, our repair activity was $13,025. The next year, 2011, 2012, our repair activity was $13,560, almost to the money. Then we skipped a year with a cruiser. The repair activity went up to $25,151. And the next year it was $21,628. So there's clearly a pattern that when we interrupted that year, it started costing us more money. And what's happening is, if you look at the years and the mileage on these cars, we haven't caught up yet, is what I'm saying. We haven't quite caught up yet.
No, the data, I understand, but what I struggle with is people would make the argument that it's better to spend $10,000 more on repairs than to spend $40,000 on a new cruiser.
But for how many years?
No,
I mean, you're
I'm
gonna
just-
spend, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but that's cumulative.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
Picture off
well,
the year.
3 to 4 years.
And Randy,
But it's not necessarily the
It may not be
safest.
10,000. You got 4 vehicles that are 100,000 miles more. Okay, and
That's what the
to
problem
the
is.
chief's point, we missed a cycle and didn't buy a cruiser for 2 years. We are paying the price. I think 1 year subsequent to that, it took an extra 6 months to order the vehicle, so in effect, it was like 18 months.
Sure.
So I think we're paying the price here, and I can't see how we can buy another cruiser.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting with 4
You're sitting
vehicles
with
that
4
did
vehicles.
this, that they could all go, I mean, I think.
And see, another factor is, and again, I like to worry about other departments, because we're all in this together. Another factor is, if we ran these cars another year, every car we take out of service is gonna be junk. It won't be usable, which means, what's gonna happen when Harold's car dies? What's gonna happen when the cadet car dies? What's gonna happen when the town hall car dies? I won't have a car to give them, which means some other town department is gonna have to figure out a way to get a car.
That's the solution for the old ambulance.
No.
Put a backhoe
That's
on
too
it.
expensive, they're only getting $500 for their car, we can get
Chief,
$40,000 for
do
that.
we have this membership, whatever, in the Plymouth County Cruiser
Yes.
system? Is that what you use?
Yes.
It's a contract.
We buy, when you see a police car out there, State Police, Boston Police, Bolton Police, all three of those cars are exactly the same. The equipment's the same as far as the base car. The price is the same. The specifications are the same. The only difference is what each agency does extra. The State Police put a certain kind of light bar on the roof. We put a certain kind on. The State Police paint them two-tone, expensive to paint cruisers. We've stopped painting our cruisers two-tone because it saves, what's it about? $750 by going with graphics. So the cruiser prices are all the same. The cruisers are all the same. It's the upfitting that adds the extra cost. Some agencies upfit tremendously. They put fancy lights, fancy equipment. We upfit as we feel we need that works for us. And the lieutenant's very frugal with the upfitting equipment. So yes, the cruisers are all purchased at the same place. They're all purchased for the same price. It's just what you do to it extra. Same with tires. We buy the tires under the same type of bid, so the tires come under the same pricing. And it's all considerably discounted from what civilians would pay if they could get these.
I would also suggest that the chief also indicated that between last year, the year before, and this past year, there was over 1,000 calls.
Went up,
Yeah,
up
increase in
went up
thousand.
1,056.
So that just translates into mileage, you know.
And I think the change, I mean, the climate change, which we can't
Have you ever
pretend
got,
it doesn't exist,
have you
takes
ever
more wear
gotten
and
a
tear.
car from, I'm just reading this, but from seizures and donations?
Yes, we did. We got one. It was a Ford Taurus. It was not a cruiser. It was a civilian
Yes, support
Taurus.
vehicle,
And we
right.
used that as a detective and an administrative car for, which is about 5, 6
How do you
years.
get one of
Yeah.
those? How do you
And-
get one of those?
and
Because
we,
that would be the answer
well, we have to make
that.
the big drug busts.
You gotta make a
Oh,
drug
did you, here, so it's
in town.
Yeah, you have to make an arrest.
It's done through the Department of Justice. They
Oh.
determine.
So anybody
it's all
at the
through-
table want to
Well,
volunteer?
this is, well,
If we
that's
get a
not
drone
clear here.
facility,
You guys
it's
ain't
nice.
drunk.
It says
Donate.
acquire support vehicles through drug seizure, forfeiture proceedings, or community,
Mhm.
commercial, or governmental surplus donation. So it's misleading on this that it had to be in your town. I thought maybe they would have a
Be nice to see
surplus of
something.
Well,
these
actually,
vehicles that,
we are pursuing, I was very successful in Framingham. I ended up getting 4 vehicles for Framingham, 4-wheel drive Army surplus vehicles, ambulances, Jeeps, things like that. We are constantly looking at the federal government to try to get
Nice.
an all-wheel drive vehicle that could be used off-road, and it would be free. It would come from the federal government. So if we could get one of those, that would be a real benefit, but they're very hard to get.
don't they auction these things off? I see these auctions for these drug bust cars,
Yeah, we
federal
don't, we
government.
really
Yeah,
don't have a
but unless
mechanism
you
to
can't
do
use that as
that.
a police
Have
cruiser.
money.
Yeah.
No,
No,
it's
but
being,
support vehicles.
Yeah, I think we have the
He
support
talks about it as a
Yeah.
support
Yeah,
vehicle.
our fleet, as you
there's a
see,
lot of support.
as you see this right now, I'm not asking for any additional cars. We're very workable, very comfortable with what we have. We're just concerned with the condition of what we have.
Can I ask you a question about the increase, the 1,000 calls increase? Can you attribute what percentage of that comes from 495 at all?
It's really, in looking at the figures, the call increase is right across the board.
Okay.
As far as being able to give you a figure specifically for 495, we'd have to go back into a computer and do a search for
Is that
all those calls.
information tangible?
A lot of our mutual aid calls are caused by the 495. Actually, I have some figures here I can tell you.
Which puts mileage, I'm thinking, on these. What I'm getting at is, I'm wondering, David's suggestion, I think it was last week, if there were any funds, state funds available
No,
to
there aren't. Unfortunately,
supplement. Okay.
believe me, I'll take anything we can get for free from somebody else. And unfortunately, there isn't.
495 running through our
I mean,
account doesn't give you any.
there's a lot of calls.
Except the headache.
We actually ran the statistics on mutual aid calls. What mutual aid calls are called when another agency calls us for help, or we call another agency for help. Mutual aid calls to Bolton from surrounding towns. This is when we had to go out and help somebody else. In 2012, we had 22 calls. In 2013, 8, and in 2014, so far, 1. This is where another town has called us for help, and we have to go. We can't say no. mutual aid to surrounding towns. In 2012, 164, 2013, 152, in 2014, 14 already.
Those are the ones where we're going
Yeah.
up, chief. The ones that you said were the ones that where we've asked for mutual aid.
Yes.
Right, to come in, excuse me. The first series, the lower numbers were when we've asked somebody to come in and help us. The figures I just gave were when we
Have to
Yeah,
leave
go
the
down.
town.
go help somebody else. And captured in those are the Route 495 calls.
Okay.
Because when we go up on 495, yes, it's Bolton. We have a primary response, as does the fire and the ambulance. But it's usually the state police calling us for assistance. So it's still Bolton. 495 is a shared jurisdiction. We don't go up there and do traffic enforcement. We don't run radar up there. We don't write tickets up there. Well, we do. Sometimes we can if we're up there and we see something. But
You're not sitting there
we're
waiting.
not sitting
Not-
there. No, I don't want them up there.
But you're aiding an emergency.
I remember
Exactly.
last year I called Lancaster, Stowe, and Harvard and talked to the chief of police there, and they all said the same thing. You know, we really need a car a year. And it was just a car a year because of all
Well, I
of the
do
same
too.
things. I know, but and it's hard for me. I gotta tell you, I always come in here saying, no, I don't want a car a year. Even though I did all that research and I was, you know, I temper it, well, sure, they want a car a year because it's coming from the, you know, the chief of police from each department, each town. But after I did talk to them and do a lot of research, it's pretty typical.
It's just,
It is
it
pretty typical.
works for us. I mean, we had a good system in place, and you know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it worked for us. It kept the fleet reasonable, it kept usable vehicles available. When it was interrupted, as you said, we're still paying the price. I mean, we can, you know, we can do whatever is, you pay me and you pay the lieutenant to manage departments and try to keep costs down and manage the fleet. We're telling you that we think the best benefit, the safest and the best investment is to stay in that cycle until we catch up. And there's merit to what, you know, to what Randy has said, that we may get to a point, hopefully
Well, that's
soon,
how-
where the fleet's in better shape, so we can say,
Even by
hey,
next
let's
year,
let's
yeah,
defer
year
it.
and a half.
What-
That's what I'm.
What would really
thinking.
help me, what would nail this down for me
Mhm.
is a graph, right? That says at the bottom, it's how many miles are on the car. And then how much is being put into it.
You mean
Okay.
repairs?
Repairs, right? So I'd want to know if the curve goes like this, if the curve goes like this, if the curve goes like that, something like that. And you know, then I say, oh, after 3 years, or after 85,000 miles, or after 35,000 miles.
Time to buy them.
Yeah, all right?
But we
Can I
can't
get
measure
I mean, I know we don't have that tonight, but
Can I
that
get-
would really help me for future discussions.
Can I get a feel from the committee on where we're standing on this, so that see how much,
Okay. I'd want to reserve judgment until
What?
capital planning.
Oh, no,
okay, I'm just saying, I'm just,
didn't
yeah,
wanna
you're gonna, okay.
stop talking.
So I don't, so I guess that's a possibility, reserve judgment, you have a position one way or another, you'd like to see more information so we can kind of wrap this piece up. Brad?
I like Bob's graph, and I think I would like to wait to hear what capital planning says. But if I may, Chief, you said, you know, you could revisit this model once you get back to comfort. When is that? Right? 'Cause when
How
do
do
we
you
get?
know what comfort looks like?
Well, yeah, because I guess my question is, we skipped a year, and we're still paying for it, but how long before that had you skipped another year? I mean, because are we? So you never did.
I think when we see the repair bills going down is a good indicator too of we're in better shape and condition-wise, and the problems encountered. As the lieutenant pointed out, you know, we're hitting problems now we never had before when we were on that cycle. Serious problems like engine rebuilds, transmission rebuilds.
So prior to that year that was skipped,
Is it 2 years?
all the years before, we always got a car.
Right.
So if that's the case, then what you're also saying is we can't skip a year. So we need a car every year.
Well, I'm not saying skip a year. We had talked about a 6-month deferral, like in other words, go
Yeah.
half.
18 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, go a half year.
Well, it is-
We may reach that point when, as I said, when the fleet's in better shape. That's why I'm telling you now is, I don't think the fleet's in good enough shape for us to miss.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and so Terry, I mean, I've got a pretty good idea, but me personally, I'd like to wait to hear
And we're
more
gonna-
what capital planning says,
Okay,
but
they'll
I'm
be in
fairly
on,
confident.
okay, they'll be in 2 days.
The difference, the difference of going, so the every 18 months versus every year is $13,000 a year, or $40,000. It's not material enough, it's not like it's I mean,
It's not
it's just a friend, it's not a $40,000 delta. Shaving that 18 months down to 12 is essentially a 13, it's not significant.
I'm just gonna go around here and then I'll, okay, Connie? Yeah, I mean, is everybody gonna say, if everybody's gonna say they wanna wait, then we'll just
Well,
wait.
I think we owe capital
Yeah, I
planning
think
to come in
that's true.
and
Yeah.
talk.
Okay,
before we-
when you're there.
I mean, I can get, I'll just ask the question because I have to,
Sure.
number one. And number
Sure.
two, at some point in time, if we do this 2, 3, 4 years in a row,
It'll
we
work.
have to be able to skip a year at some point. I would think, I mean,
I
looking
think
at the
too,
math.
I agree too.
Yeah.
Once they're in
We're just
decent
not-
shape,
Just not there.
I just think we're
Looks
we're
like we
not
missed
quite
2
there yet.
years. I mean,
Yeah.
I will give capital planning their due, but I'm there on the need this year. Bob, you already said you wanna wait.
Where's the money coming from? Is it free cash?
No, it's budget.
Budget.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
line item.
Yeah, I'm.
Okay.
Go for this card.
Okay, so we will have capital planning in, I don't know how difficult, charts, we love charts, he loves charts, graphs, high things, anything like that. But if it's too, it may not be necessary this year, but it is visual, and that can be very, very
So
helpful.
you're looking for a graph per car?
Yeah,
You want to
showing
see, so we're
cost
talking
versus-
about
yeah.
7 graphs, right?
Mhm.
You want to see all that across?
No, we
Correct?
can put something together.
Sure.
Versus
And
one
call-
graph
call
with
me
all
if
these
you wanna
lines.
Yeah.
Sit down and go over it.
Mhm.
I can come by and.
No, I understand what you're looking for.
Give me an
Absolutely,
X and
we
Y
can do that.
graph. It's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
David, just a quick
Yeah,
comment?
I agree with Randy's 13,000 a year number. I disagree that it isn't significant. I think it is significant. The cruiser repair budget is 19,000. I find it very hard to believe that this is going to increase that by 65%. In other words, that would be roughly what the $13,000 difference would be. So it seems to me it would be more economical to do the repairs and have
Yeah, my only, if we were just looking at numbers, it's always easy to just look at numbers, but when you're taking into account vehicles being off service, officers not having a vehicle to use, safety issues, that's where they're not just intangibles, these are tangibles. We're asking people to go out on the road, we're asking people to save our lives and protect us, and not give them a piece of equipment, which I thought was brilliantly said, Chief. I mean, not everything you say was, but this was brilliant. So you brilliantly said that this is one of the things they need, just like they need their gun, and, I'm not a gun person, but just like they need their gun, and they need their bulletproof vest, and they need their uniforms. And I think you can't just dollarize some stuff, David. I'm sorry. I hear what you're saying. If it were just dollars and cents, it's easy to make some of these decisions. Unfortunately, it just isn't. So with that, unless,
Okay, just a
Yeah.
quick comment, I just want to add to that equation is that we're looking at it going over our cruiser maintenance budget this year based on the repairs. So that budgeted figure really is not
It's not
accurate.
18 or 19.
It's not accurate for what we're running.
so I'm gonna say that if we
To whittle
don't.
it down even further, $10,000, the repair bill went up $10,000 when we didn't replace the cruiser. If it's gonna
Yes.
cost $13,000 a year more to go from 18 to 12, the real delta is
Is the
$3,000, right?
And you're getting older.
Which,
Yeah,
if that makes it easier for people to rationalize, but.
But you're basing that repair cost on the fleet as it exists today.
Understood.
If you don't do anything,
It's a year
the
over.
fleet just gets older and the repairs are gonna increase
Yeah.
dramatically.
So, I think we're just, it's staying, the budget's staying as it is. Right now, we have capital planning coming in, and there'll be further discussion there.
One thing that I did pass out to
Oh,
you
yeah,
for your
sorry.
peruse. We're looking at options too, because we know it's always, it's contested when we look for a cruiser. We looked at a lease option, the lieutenant did a lot of research. just for your information, we gave you the lease sheets with the terms. The terms are good, the costing is, again, it's that old lease versus buy for the town. Something that we looked at, maybe it's less expensive, or maybe it's more prudent to, for the town to lease as opposed to buy. Because these police leases, the cars are so worn out, you get to buy it for $1 at the end of the lease. But just some information for you to have and look at. That's an option that we certainly could explore further if it was attractive to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Okay, going through the two remaining budgets, we'll see how this takes us. Sorry about all this delay, but we have the public safety building, 200. There's some quite a bit of variances in certain line items. We can walk through them, but I think purchase of services, okay, for the total, I'll just do a total overview. So for fiscal year 2015, the requested budget is $208,258. This is for town, but for the public safety building, that's an increase of $34,775 over 2014. A big piece of it is in maintenance, so why don't we just start with that?
I'm actually gonna have Lorraine explain a lot of this to you, because she's basically the building manager as far as dealing with the building services, and she has quite a bit of detail to pass on to you.
Okay.
Okay, so if we jump up to services, the biggest increase is with our network company, Microdots. We have them right now, they take care of our network and all the functionality, all the pinging, everything. Our ticket system, all of our management, our records management systems, that's what they're contracted to take care of now. What we're finding is with the technology changes, their needs are becoming greater. Because of that, they're going to charge us more because we need more support for the technologies that we currently have.
So what portion of that purchase of services is Microdots? Is that
purchase of services, if you look down, you know what, you didn't get there was not a backup. Let me hand that out, I did make copies.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that.
And I just want to add, the building account actually covers 3 departments, police, fire, and ambulance. It's not specific to police.
Right, it's the whole entire building.
To the left.
Thank you.
Julie, you went to Julie too, she doesn't have it. Two there, okay.
Thank you.
And
Okay. Well, this is great.
okay. If you come down to services, it's a breakdown as to pretty much what the services encompasses.
So 32,000 of the,
which would be, services is the 5,200 account, so purchase of service, if that's what you're referencing.
right, so 32,000 is Microdots, and that's an increase of 9,000.
Well, we're asking that, and there's more variable involved with that also, because we have to come down to software support. And if you come down to software support in fiscal year 14, we had 7,700 allocated for the new EMD project that we're currently in. Back, that was given to and we knew under those assumptions that there was going to be maintenance involved with the TriTech portion of it and the priority dispatch portion of it. All the those types of maintenances will be covered by Microdots. They will absorb all that extra technology that is due to come live. That also includes, the ambulance now has this fusion that they want to incorporate. So we're talking about the ambulance and the
the software support. What exactly is Microdots going to support in fiscal 15?
What they support is, it's...
Just in the software support line items.
And no, down here.
This is not Microdots.
The 7,700 under fiscal year 14, that's right now we're spending towards the engineering of implementing the EMD project. That was part of that article. That was
emergency medical dispatch.
With that, we encompassed 20,000 went to the ambulance, and then the residuals went back to the communications department to put in this new software EMD package through priority dispatch into our console.
Okay, so.
Now,
Right.
that software support that was already budgeted for, I'm asking if we can absorb that back into the microdots because it's bigger and there's more of them that they need now with everything, there's updates, there's monitoring, there's problems that may occur, there could be bugs. All those technologies, they're active 24/7, and this microdots is, you either during business hours, you're on the phone with them, and you have your remote repairs, or they're coming out to the building because they need to come in-house to actually sit
Okay.
at a device.
So, but down at software support again, where
Right.
it says priority dispatch annual license fee.
We still have to pay a licensing fee every year. and
Hold
we-
on,
okay.
hold on. It says software support for fiscal 15, 7,900.
Right.
And then to the right, it says fiscal 15, $3,000.
That's the total, the
That's the
7,900 is the
total.
total.
That's the
So if
total
you
of all
come
five
down
of those lines.
300,
Oh, okay.
450, 450,
All right.
3,001, that
Okay.
totals the 7,900. And that,
And all of that is all of that is going to be microdots managing.
this, yes, that's why their fee has increased, because we're adding all of these new products into our network.
So this isn't instead of microdot, the 7,900 is it needs to be
The
there.
7,900, yes, we already knew that we had to pay priority dispatch licensing. We have to do the annual licensing fees anyway.
Does the 7,900 go to microdots?
No, the
Okay,
7,900.
that's what I'm trying to understand.
The 7,700 that we are currently
In
working
15,
under in
okay.
14 is when I'm looking at, I'm pulling it over to them, up, which increased up there, that's where the thought was for them to absorb that amount of money up
Okay.
In
up
addition,
top.
there's a.
And then down here,
Okay, so
we
none of the
still-
7,900 goes to microdots.
no, these are for these individual
Okay.
items that you see.
What specific software does microdots support?
Everything, it's all our records management system, which is, it's all of our, it's our servers, it does all.
Desktops,
all our-
printers, cables,
Every
Okay, but
device in the
that's
building.
hardware.
Well, it's still networked. So each piece of equipment, we all coming into,
Okay.
the software we're using, a records
Are they
management
doing the
system.
backbone, or are they doing the applications?
Tell me
they're
what
the
you're
same-
talking about, backbone application.
Microsoft Windows is a backbone, Excel is an application.
Oh, Microsoft, they're like the backbone of the system. We have our applications, it's our software, which are already installed in our devices.
Right.
There are tools that we use.
Right.
Those tools become problematic, and so
If there's a
through our
problem
network.
with the tool,
Mhm.
do you call microdots? or do you-
Absolutely,
Right, okay.
everything goes to them, every maintenance.
Every operations issue. goes to
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So the major increase is 10,000 from them, and
And
then,
then we come down to the maintenance, we need a new server,
now let's just stay on,
unfortunately.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, just stay on purchase of service, because so the entire increase in purchase of services, $10,000, is due to the increased work that Microdots is gonna do, which is related to EMD, I guess.
Well, with the TriTech and
Okay.
more so, everything with internal, the whole network within the department, which includes everything from the security systems to the fire panels to the APC, and everything that comes through our network, they monitor. And everything comes through our network, because everything's computerized.
In that one,
I'm sorry.
that article that was before the town last year, where the whole
That's
safety
exactly
building upgrade. How much of that, so,
Did we anticipate this?
yeah,
With that?
yeah, how much is that driving this added cost?
Well, that wasn't actually brought up at the time. What they did is, we had Microdots was already in there managing what we currently had, and this was a new, and we looked at their engineering fees, and it was talked about, because we kind of said, well, but then when Microdots looks at how the technology keeps changing, and we need to have updates, and their work is increasing, and the hours that they're spending on us,
Yeah.
coming to us, well, we really need to relook at
I
it.
guess to Brad's point, this is what my question was, is we kind of undersold this
Yeah.
2 years ago.
On the EMD?
On the warrant.
Well, I think what was on the warrant was the cost of buying it and implementing it,
But
not
we
the
did that.
cost
Nothing
of...
thereafter.
This is maintaining it.
Yeah, but I think,
We're kind of in a pickle now because we
Spent all that other
spent
money.
all the money and now we're kind of monopolized on supporting it.
Yeah.
We're also finding within our records management that TriTech, which we used to be IMCs, now TriTech, it's national. We have a lot of upgrades now. Every 2 to 3 months, I'm getting, another upgrade to this, upgrade to that. Those
you're
costs were not,
Microdots do that.
they come in-house, and it's like a 2-day process for them to sit there and make all these, and then they have to run it and make sure there's no problems. So we have testing that goes on before we implement it building-wide, so.
So was this a good thing for us to have done 2 years ago? We realized there's a ton of benefits from this?
We don't know, it's not
I thought some
started
of it
yet.
was state mandated.
Well, the EMD is,
EMD
and they were, this is more of a computerized effort versus a flip card effort for the dispatchers, which are, it's very intensive.
This is automated dispatching software for, right now, we're operating under a flip card system, and it's not efficient, it's tedious, and it's not delivering the best service. What the article was for was to provide a version of that. That's what we've purchased. This that Lorraine's outlining now, this is to maintain that and to keep that running. It's
Two
not-
important points, though,
Portion
that
of
it was last year, it wasn't 2 years.
yeah, no, it was last year.
And the entire increase with Microdots is not attributable to that software.
No,
That
no,
software is a
That's
component of the.
system-wide.
it's a whole
Right,
system-wide
it's not 100%,
process.
but actually, it's a small, probably a relatively small percentage.
Would it be useful to have our other IT specialists
We went
look
through that
at,
last year.
no, hold on, let me
Yeah.
finish. Look at what Microdots is doing and possibly make suggestions about...
No, we're talking about, not to say anything disparaging against Gary, but we're talking about 2 completely different types of individuals, 2 completely different types of environments. Gary is maintaining our servers and
I
our
understand.
simple network. And
I'm not suggesting that he even has the manpower to do this.
No. I
Just
don't
that
think he has the technical wherewithal to do it at all.
No, not even do it. Just,
Or even
is this the most effective way for us to manage it?
I don't believe he is
Okay.
capable of making that
Okay.
decision. I don't think we should even entertain that.
Okay.
That's one of the advantages of having the professional IT company is that they outline the best practice for us as far as managing it.
Yeah, and
Well-
I think, I remember, Chief, when you came in here and you explained the flip card, and it made all the sense in the world. Yes, it's gonna make everything better and more efficient and all that, but the unfortunate thing is now we've also, that system has also just bought the town an annuity that
Yeah.
we need to pay on.
Having worked for an IT company, their proposals are primarily based on making things best for the IT company. And, they've got us over a barrel, they know it. I wish there were some other way we could second guess what their proposals are to us. I mean, I certainly don't have the expertise, but this is a big jump, and we're relying on someone increasingly. And it'd just be good to have someone else with some,
New leverage.
Yeah.
with some expertise telling us whether or not we're really getting our most effective.
Is there someone
spending.
else out there that does this kind of work? I mean,
Well, they wouldn't do it for free. I mean, we.
No.
Well, we have
I
to,
understand.
like in any business arrangement, a lot of we have to rely on is the integrity and the reputation of the company.
Right.
This company is second to none based on integrity and reputation. They've demonstrated that they've performed a lot of work for us gratis. I mean, I can't tell you how many projects that they've done where they haven't billed us for
Well,
to
our
build a
ticket system is
relationship.
huge. I have last fiscal year is probably 2 of these of tickets. Just going through, there's always something going on. I can't get into this, I have to do this, my passwords, I can't do it, I'm defaulted, I can't log in, I need credentials for this and that. It's not just the EMD, it's not just the record management system, which is huge. All 3 of us run within this records management system through the state. and through the criminal justice system. It's our security system. It has to do with the Sally Port, the garage doors, everything.
Internal building control.
The heating, you know, even though Harold has his people who take care of the heating components and the sprinklers, all of that stuff comes through the network, and if there's a failure, they'll know. So you know, the backup battery systems, you know, up in the attic, and you know, when the power goes out, these things kick on and bring live. We'll start that, you know, it's the backup, that generator in case of failure. So there's a lot of components involved, not just the EMD.
No,
It's
yeah, I
just
realize
that
that.
the,
I realize that.
Lorraine, would it be possible, I mean, obviously, last year we were paying X dollars to
Right.
Microdots for support. And we now have this new EMD, which, as to Don's point, is going to increase to some extent the maintenance cost, but it's not the whole 10K. Can you get a breakdown from them that says, okay, last year we were paying X, and the EMD maintenance component of it is Y, and then there's the delta, which is now, there's another piece which is Z. So, you know, that last piece of increase is devoted to what?
right, and also to note, there's aspects within our building that are not even being monitored yet. Our phone system, which is pretty much running on its own.
Oh, so, okay,
So part of our Cisco phone system, Microdots will take on that phone system.
Okay.
We've had critical failures already with our phone system, which Microdots have come in and billed us for to repair.
So there are things that they're going to do now that
They have never done
they had not
before.
done before.
There's a
So I think that would,
That'd be helpful.
There's a
that would
huge
be helpful.
process.
And also, I mean, just thinking next year, are we gonna look at another $10,000 increase? I mean, is there a way of getting any kind of handle of, is this real identifiable cost like you're, you know, like we're hoping we can find, or is this
Well, one
just
thing when
built-in
you think
increases?
of, it depends, you know, they look at how many desktops are we looking at, how many desktops are we helping? We have a dispatch center, we have a fire department. Fire department wants to put laptops in the trucks, so there's engineering costs there, and then there's gonna be, right now, who's going to, that's another add-on into the network that Microdots right now is part of. Tell us what you want and how can we help you? So EMS wants to add another laptop. So all these little technologies, add-ons, is what's increasing the fee structure.
Above and beyond just the hardware.
You have to remember,
Who's making the decision to stop the add-ons, or that if every add-on is valuable, or?
I think it's a discussion based upon what our needs are. You know, when we come, if we have a project, like the fire and the EMS, if they're asking you, can we do this or that?
Haven't heard any questions
No,
like that. We haven't heard any.
No.
Yeah.
I think what's missing is that a lot of these add-ons, people are looking at as nice to haves and not really being able to quantify how much it's gonna cost us incrementally.
And
for the
one thing
service.
to remember, even though it's a separate portal out of our building, it still goes through our network, is everything that's tied to the state. We, you know, our APHIS, our fingerprint system to the
Very, very
state,
secure system.
through the FBI, and our firearms licensing. Those are integral parts too, that, you know, our 911 system. So there's a lot of stuff that's there
Yeah, well,
that
I
needs to
think-
be taken care of. If it fails, we're in trouble.
Well, I think, I'm not gonna speak for the entire board or committee, but I think that we're all sensitive to that, but it just, you know, it is to see $10,000 for a variety of different
Well, it's not
reasons, and
just
then,
that,
and
you
then
have
was it
to-
next year, is there another
And I have
10,000?
a feeling that this server that we haven't even talked about has to do with processing all of this.
Not necessarily.
New data too.
What we have there, we had a critical failure back it was trolling. It's just not, what was there is not enough to support what we have. And we can, you know, I have more backup for that, you know, down below in the green part.
Are we done with this topic before we go?
Well, I'm just
Oh,
wondering if it's
server
linked,
replacement and
but
client
beyond-
licensing.
You know, if you
10,000.
wanted to, you know,
Maybe.
get further into it, we have to replace it.
Who suggested that we replace?
Well, the IT company, because we had this, well,
We had failures.
you have to remember that a critical failure, we lost our server. They have loaned us a server. Their server's sitting at the public safety building. Didn't charge us for it. We now have redundancy, where if we fail, we have a backup system that's gonna recover what we have.
And the original design did not include that, there was no backup. Had
No
our systems crashed,
nothing
we
there,
lost all
you
our
know,
operations.
for anyone prior to them coming to do any new file updates or firmware updates, all that stuff, they had to shut everything down. We can't shut down.
Sure.
There was nothing there, so they created a redundancy for us, so we could operate and they can do their thing. So.
See, the IT system is so advanced now and so extensive, and it's growing, like they do in corporations, especially with the new technology. There are not the resources within the town to manage that, as far as the technical aspects of it. I'm a police chief, I know how to work a computer, but that's about it.
I'm
So-
looking at the $20,000 project
Well,
to
there's another capital.
do that survey,
Yeah.
just.
Well,
I think
didn't know where to put it at this
No,
time.
no,
Put it there, yeah.
you put it in the right place, I'm just,
So
Yeah, but maybe it needs to-
I don't think so. I
I
think
think
it's
maybe
a
it needs
capital
to
item
be-
that needs to be dealt with the town that links it in some capacity to, hey, I mean, at some point in time, it's like, hey, you approved this last year, paid for it with free cash, it was what, 40 grand, something like
For
that.
the,
Your piece.
but
The-
the-
someone's gotta be asking, like on this server, how much of the server's capacity, I have no idea what model's being put in. How much of the server's capacity is gonna be absorbed by current demands? And as this other software is put in, how much more demand is it gonna put on the server? And is the server, sized for growth and so on and so forth? Someone's gotta be asking questions like that before, because I don't, you could spend 20,000, half of this expense is in
Engineering,
is
well,
in
engineering and
engineering,
licensing.
right? It's not the hardware, it's with the engineering and the licensing. And you have to duplicate that all over again if you outgrow your server in 3 years.
well,
Now, my
I'm-
point is not, you should be asking these questions.
well,
but
I already have.
we need some kind of
So,
resource to do that, okay?
Our
But-
current, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, but I think Bob's point, and no disrespect to you, you do a fantastic job, but are you the right person that should be asking you? I think that's sort of where none of us are
It would be Gary
technically.
then, because he's working.
Well,
Well, but maybe
Stan
not.
said
No,
we-
okay.
We've
It
already
doesn't
talked to
have the
Gary,
expert-
and we've talked to Gary in the past, and Gary.
And I don't think Gary wants
He
to
told us
do this.
he doesn't have the resources to support the size of.
No, he cannot take on your project, but can he advise us on how to manage microdots? Or can somebody else?
Yeah, he would have to understand the entire enterprise to be able
Okay,
to advise.
okay, so take Gary's name out of the equation, but we're,
Well, one thing to also remember,
Who's Bolton's advocate? Like, we're taking advice from salespeople who are trying to sell us things, right? I mean, that's essentially what's happening, right? Who's working for the town, managing the town's best interest? I think
Well,
was
that's
the greater
Lorraine
question.
and I, because
Right.
we have to approve, obviously.
I understand, but you don't have
It's
a
not-
degree in technology.
No, I
neither do
don't.
right? So that's what makes me nervous.
Which falls back to a lot of what you have to rely on is obviously the
And Lorraine's
integrity of
been-
professional.
well,
Sorry,
one thing
I
to
didn't mean-
remember is the XP and the Windows 3 Exchange is obsolete
Yeah.
of this year. That's what we have.
right.
So we need to move on, and once we get what we need, where we need to be with the new update, we're gonna be looking at server replacements every 4 to 6 years. It's just the way it's
Well,
gonna be.
no, that's fine, I can live with that.
You know what we're
Yeah, I
saying,
can
and
live
we're
with
at that point right now. We're going on this right now, what we have is no longer gonna be supported. It's
Right.
inadequate for what we're adding to it. It's not gonna work. It's the same thing with the old desktops.
Even if the server were still working, you'd be coming to us in a year or two and saying, I need a new server.
It's
Right.
going to happen, and problems will begin, we'll start to troll through our network, and then we're gonna.
We're a business, just like any corporation, we have to maintain the operations. If the computers go down, we can't operate. If the cameras don't work in the station on the cell blocks, we can't operate.
Right.
So we have to rely on professionals that are in that field. Now, do we go out and spend 20 grand to hire a consultant to tell us whether this company's, there's gotta be a
No,
trust
I-
factor involved too.
Yeah,
Because the town
and
doesn't.
you know, there's a certain benefit to having two similar companies, you know.
Vying for the business.
Vying for the same business, and, or, you know, one of them gets 80% of the business and the other gets 20%, because that keeps the 80% a little more honest and
Don, none of
hungry
this,
and stuff like that.
none of this needs to go through.
Well, you may not because of the technology.
Procurement
Right.
regulations.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, none of this, it's a big ticket item, right? None of this, due to the size of it, needs to go through the proper procurement.
We have gone through the
Chance.
we went through the proper procurement when we selected Microdots
And so we went out to bid with
Yes,
the,
we did.
okay.
And when was that? That was 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And does that bidding process flow through the whole project's life cycle?
Whenever they need any equipment replaced, they go into, like, purchase through Dell government accounts.
State.
you
Right,
know,
they purchased through state.
Everything
Yeah.
like that. Their fees, of course, are what they are. This is their, first fiscal year with us, and now this is their second fiscal year, starting in July with us. And the onboarding.
Okay, so it's only one.
The onboarding was based
And
upon.
basically, the big ticket item you're talking about is the server, and we're not talking about an additional server, we're talking about our server failed.
Yeah.
No, it's like,
No, I mean, I just, there's a bunch of questions.
I mean, I don't think we want to be hiring a consultant to manage our consultant.
no.
No,
We have to be able to have confidence in the consultant we have.
yeah, I mean, my questions are whether we just, whether this is a worthy operating item or whether this is a capital item that gets treated
Well,
similar to.
what is a capital item?
Server.
Well, we,
Well, we have to have the server. I mean, it's not a question of whether or not we have it.
The other thing that comes up there is if this thing's
This is not a
failed.
luxury, we have to have the server.
Yeah, if this thing has failed, should it just come out of advisory as an unexpected expense and just get it going?
Well, if it fails, what do we do in the meantime? You know what I
Well,
mean?
it failed. It's already
Usually-
failed.
Then they
Well,
load it,
It's
they're-
jury rigged to
Yeah,
now.
right now that they're
It's working
supporting it,
until-
they came in and brought us back on, that happened last August. In August and September and October, we were finally,
So you've been on the replacement since last September?
No, longer.
yes, August is when it started. It was trolling, you could see things happening, and they came in and said enough is enough, because
Okay.
that was the first year of onboarding, based upon all the cleanup they had to do. And then it got to a point where now we're losing processes that we could no longer do anymore. And we even had Dell come in and rebuild the server some months prior to that, under warranty. Warranties are gone, so that was the original equipment that went in the public safety building.
Is this a server we had prior to all of this new technology coming in?
No, this is part of the new public safety
Okay.
building.
Got it.
When the
When the
building was
building came in,
built,
the
that was
system.
part of the design of the system, but the system was over a year old when we moved in, because it all had to be purchased.
What year was
before
that?
the-
I should know.
We moved in 2010 of
Yeah.
October, and then everything was up and running prior to that. We just weren't in there using it.
So the day we moved in, the system was all,
We had to run.
So we're at 4 years now
Right.
for technology. Okay.
and then the capacity's been added to it.
Got it.
well, I mean, we clearly need it. It's just a matter of where we put it. I think. Typically, our policy on stuff like this, one-time large items has been not to increase operating budgets for it, to sort of carve them out, whether we decide to spend free cash on it. But then that has to go to town meeting, it runs the risk of
That's a-
failing when we absolutely need it, so. Do we
Yeah,
make
so-
the?
It sounds like it's
you know,
every 4-year
Right.
kind of a thing. It's not like it's
Yeah.
more frequent
That's the
than,
only thing I'm trying to
okay.
get
That's
my
what we-
hand around.
Because it certainly wasn't a planned expense.
That's the other thing about taking out of the advisory reserve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
takes
gets
20
done immediately, and we have the ability to do it today. We wanted to do it. And then if advisory reserve runs short in the next couple months, we have a placeholder to
Well, we've got
replenish it at town meeting, which we've done before too.
fire coming in and asking for money out of that too, which could be anywhere from
We just take the
4 to
noise, we just deal with it, and we take the noise away.
And the fire,
You've got a transfer request coming from me
for
Thursday night
10.
for legal,
And so we have to sort of
For how
think
much?
of 10.
10,000.
So we have 10, 20, 30, 40,000, we've got 80,000 in left, so that's half of it, so we've got 40,000, take us to the rest of the year.
I think we should just leave it in the budget. You know, it looks like it's.
You can survive until,
Microdots is providing a machine that works.
They can keep it running until the town meeting.
That's like the
That was
jobs
our
I like.
plan.
We got a loaner.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's in the budget, we
Yeah.
can't
I know, I
spend
was
this
thinking the same thing.
till July
No,
1st.
no,
Right.
they're
it's a
aware
new
of
way to do
this.
business.
Yeah, they don't, I
Absolutely.
mean, they can continue to keep it going for us. just
Okay.
To
They're not
their
gonna
best estimates.
unplug us.
No, they'll keep it going.
It's getting really late, and I'm really sorry about this. So, and we have a couple, so we have communications to go through.
Do you still want to revisit this?
Well, I think we have to think about this, right? I don't.
What's that?
Well, there's a lot, and I know it's late, but there's a lot more. There's 5 workstation
Oh, yeah.
replacements,
Yeah.
there's 5 more thousand.
So how do we-
There's-
yeah.
How do we whittle this down and do?
Well, the workstation, those are the old XPs that are no
They
longer
said they were gonna
working.
be replaced.
You know,
Yeah,
so
we
we
brought them over from the old station.
we have desktops that aren't viable anymore.
Last year you replaced 4, this year you're replacing 5.
Well, we put in for 4, we haven't gotten there yet, you know, so, because of, you know, we're trying to keep up with our expenses that are currently, we're staggering. We've done 2 already, and we still have 2 on the books to go, we just haven't pulled the trigger on it.
And these are how much per desktop?
Well, it looks like,
$1,000.
it's 13,500,
Says
well,
2,400 each, right?
Well, that has to do, when you get, you
Oh, here you
have
go.
your desktop, your hard drive, it has to go to the depot. They have to load all the stuff into it to function within our network, all of our software.
What's
which
the
would-
depot?
2,400.
all the programs we run, so that's all part of the engineering. And then they have to come in and install it and bring it live on the network. So that's where the engineering fees and their time to upload. You get like a raw piece of equipment, they have to add all the stuff on it.
Yeah, but if it's the same equipment, they just clone the drive. I'm questioning.
What they do
why this-
on their end,
Why it's
you know,
Why it's $2,400?
Yeah, 'cause we were
Well, if you're cloning the drive, aren't you, and you're changing operating systems, don't you need the latest software, so you can't
well, it's
clone
not
it?
just that, we have.
No, you build one,
Right, oh, okay.
and then you just
You
clone that
replicate it.
drive
Right.
to multiple
Well, each
machines.
set could be configured, like a dispatch terminals are configured different because we run 911 through them. We have a Zetron, which is our radio system. So the fire departments are configured, we're all configured differently,
Depends on
so,
the placement in the unit.
as to an actual breakdown.
Yeah.
So the 5
attainable.
5 computers are not homogeneous, is what you're saying?
No, they're varied. Right now I have 2 out in the booking area, that old XPs. They're barely running, but we have no virus protection on them, but we gotta run them. So, you know, things
When
like
you
that.
said you gotta take them to the depot, what's that?
That's them. They'll come, you know,
Microdots.
they'll say, what do you need? We order it, the stuff comes in, it's all reconfigured, set up. They bring it and they bring it
And so
live.
do you have a quote from them that,
Yeah, I have everything. I
Okay,
had everything
okay.
with me. I
no, that's all right, you don't
apologize,
need to
but we
show me the
can,
quote. I
we
just
can
was
get it
wondering if
all.
it was an estimate or if you got actually.
Oh, no,
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 where
the
you're
quotes.
looking at, the
Alright.
server one I could get really firm numbers on, you know, that's, you know, we have a lot, we have user licenses, we have to think of all the email addresses, everything that's added into that server, there's a lot involved.
All right, copiers.
You know, all the transfer of data, so that I can get more of a breakdown from them, they'd be more than happy to do that.
So-
I don't think I need it for this budget.
Okay, so I'm jumping back up to purchase of services, 2 copiers.
Yes.
You're renting,
No, we lease. We're
releasing
currently in
them.
a
Oh, so
lease.
this is an existing 2
Yes,
copiers,
yes.
227.
The fire department, we just picked up, they just got a new replacement, which they needed. The one that they had was from 2000. It's actually gone, you know, no longer working. So the fire department, they now have a workable copier.
So
So they didn't
there's
have
an
one.
increase of about 1,500 from last year. Is that the
We're
one?
we're down to the copiers?
Yeah,
So
2 copiers.
fire arrest.
It's because the fire and the EMS.
It's that extra
We
copy.
just,
It's an extra
yes,
a new
a new
copier.
copier this year,
2015.
yeah. And that's located in the fire department portion of the building. The other 2, we have one in dispatch, and then we have one on the 2nd floor,
And that's a leased copier?
yes.
But that's not replacing something that
That's not
existed
that.
before?
No,
This is brand
the
new.
fire department,
Yep.
yes, because it's gone. It's no longer
So we
repairable.
owned the one that was gone.
Exactly, it came
Yes,
from
okay.
the Houghton building, yeah.
That was brought over, that actually was
They
our
got,
old
they
copy
got the
from
hand-me-down there when we
In the
moved
old
over.
days, we would have borrowed for these things, but
Yeah.
The uninterrupted power supplies is something we
Where are we?
lease.
Okay.
But where were we looking here?
The APC smart ups.
Well, those are those big battery packs.
Right,
We
right,
still have to
yeah.
keep them under the desk, and, you know, we get a lot of them.
No, but do we own those? or-
Yes, we buy those.
All right,
Same.
so when you say you buy some, what?
APC backups, what did I put? Microdot, that's them, the APC backups there, that's under the microdots. That's like the second line down from the microdot service.
No.
The APC,
No,
oh,
no.
where are you?
1,
Customer
2, 3,
services.
fourth line down. Under.
The smart UPS?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That is our
Top.
maintenance agreement for the big Colossus batteries in our
Alright,
roof.
that's-
We have,
okay.
yes,
So
I'm
that's just an
sorry.
increase.
That's the maintenance, okay,
Yes,
fine.
we have to do that.
Oh,
yeah.
you should say antivirus went down.
Yes, that did, and the antivirus is supplied through Microdots. They take care of that for us also.
So, okay.
well, I mean, this is a pretty big nut to swallow here. But I guess we don't have.
Well, I mean, how do you want to handle it? We want to have some time to look at it, or are you, what's everybody feeling on this?
I mean, I
mean,
don't.
we don't have to,
I don't know what we can do, but it's hard at this hour to.
yeah,
to
I
go
think
over
that's,
all of the detail I think we need.
so I think we're gonna
I don't think,
take this with us to look at it.
I don't think there's anything more we're gonna learn about this.
Other than we're over a barrel and
Yeah,
we need to do it, and
We need to do it.
It's a tough sell, and I mean, it's a 30, if you whittle it all down, it's 35 grand worth of increases. It all center around technology,
Mm-hmm.
and it's.
And I
because
would
of
really
stuff
like
that
to
we're
know if
going
there's
to.
any way to feel if this is the kind of thing we're gonna be seeing year after year after year. And I don't know.
Certainly
No.
not the server.
No,
It'll take
No,
20
the server's gonna
grand
take
out.
another
server's
4
not-
years,
not-
yeah,
not the
so
server.
15.
This is new with someone actually taking care of this. Prior to this, we had nobody. We had no backups.
Right.
Mm.
We had nothing. So onboarding this company, they took care of a lot of problems. You know, the whole building would have been shut down.
They
didn't
found
do that.
very severe design flaws in
Yeah.
the system.
Mm.
As I said, there was no backup, there was
There's-
no cloud for our data storage. We have that now.
We were
Yeah,
incredibly
pretty
far
important
behind on updates on software we're not getting done.
We were-
Yeah.
We were out of road on a lot of things.
19 updates behind on.
So it's
some
not
of these.
necessarily that this is something that really should have been,
We are paying
done.
we are paying the piper
Right.
for not dealing with it before.
When
and
the
it's
doors
gonna,
open,
it costs, it's
we
gonna
should have had
continue
it.
and needs to continue in order to support
We have
things, the work that we
We have a
do.
24/7 enterprise that
Yeah.
can never be done.
Yeah, that's right.
and this is,
Yeah.
the reasons for it are different, but this is the same situation as we faced with the fire department, where there was, we just hadn't dealt with the technology in the police department till after they moved, and now it's catching up with us.
And it's
and
gonna
we-
be an ongoing expense that we just have to be prepared
It's an
for.
ongoing expense. I think the rate of increase will slow dramatically after 15, but I think we'll still see some small increases.
It took a long time just to get the enterprise, to get the environment stabilized.
Right.
Mm.
And now we're pretty much, not all the way there, but we're pretty
I
much
feel
to a stable
better
environment.
knowing that Microdots is like a year out of being, you know, when you went out to bid on it, so it's obviously a decision was made and that, I feel very good about.
They've been very helpful, and they're cost conscious too. We don't feel they're wasting our money.
They always ask. One thing to bring a point, once we couldn't start that priority dispatch because we couldn't support it.
Right.
We had the money, the software, everything was ready to go. We had to wait from August to the November to get stabilized, then start the software testing within our network to support this.
I would also point out that these increases are not throughout the budget. They're very
Oh, no,
specific
yeah.
technological
Yeah.
Oh, it's three
areas
departments.
of the budget.
Yep.
And so
Are you,
I think we just have to move on here.
Okay.
We could
How
ask
does everybody
questions till the
feel?
cows come home,
where
but
are you on this,
we're
Brad?
not gonna learn
I don't know
anymore.
the first damn thing about technology, so I'm fine. Move on.
Connie, are you there with Brad?
Yeah,
How do you?
No, I don't see where we're gonna learn anything more.
Yeah.
We're not gonna hire somebody to come out and manage the manager,
Yeah.
and so,
Right.
what do you do?
Yeah, Don's opinion on this matters a lot to me, with being the procurement officer, and if he thinks that everything's
Yeah.
on the up and up, then I, believe it or not, put some, not that I don't believe you guys, but I want to make sure we're following all the right rules and.
No, we have, I appreciate that. I mean, we are certainly following all the right rules, and the fact is, we've gotten some breaks out of Microdots. First of all, I think they underestimated the hornet's nest they inherited when they became our IT contractor. And a perfect example, this server died. It went belly up. They've given us one at no charge since August. And no, their expectation is that there won't be a replacement in there until sometime in July, once we can spend the FY15 budget money. So, you know, I think they have shown us plenty of good faith.
No, I mean, I agree with Randy. I really do value the fact that it's been looked at, the company has been looked at and vetted. So I'm good to move on from here, and I think we keep the 20,000 in the budget, because it sounds like it's something that's gonna be coming again in 4 more years or 5 more years. It's one of these kinds of expenses. I mean, I know that's good.
Well, you know, at that point, you may lump it together with other servers that we have to buy for other departments. But given that this one's dead, we've got to just deal with it.
All right. Stasha?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Put it in the budget.
We can move on?
Yeah, yes. Sorry, yes.
Yes, but.
Before we move to communications, but I think it'll be very easy, and we'll be out here very quick. We didn't cover on equipment cruisers in the police department. I think we kind of skipped over the
Oh, the
$7,000
$7,000, yep.
number. Is that for the laptops in
Yes,
the
well,
cruisers, and are we replace, I mean, how are we thinking about that?
The mobile data terminals, and again, the equipment, a lot of times, there's other add-ons that, for the new cruisers. We use, let me see.
So is a new cruiser not really 40, it's 47? Is that how I should be thinking about it?
Because every,
Some of the things we're
It's not
able to
just for the
transfer
cruiser.
from other cruisers. When a cruiser model changes, for example, the cage for the prisoners that's in the Charger, didn't transfer to the forts, they're different types. So some things we can salvage, some of the lights we can salvage, some things we can't. Encompassed in that budget would be the things like the radars, any type of fire extinguisher, things of that nature. Cruisers have a lot of stuff in them. It's upfitting is what it's called.
But basically,
Not
when you
just
buy a new cruiser, you've got to spend an additional $7,000.
Not all of the set, no.
No,
Well, how
one
much
thing to
of it?
remember, oh, I'm sorry.
can-
One thing
she
to
can give you a
remember
breakdown.
with a new car too, we have to transfer equipment. You got stuff coming from one car to another, and that costs money, and that comes out of the equipment change. I'm going back to what we spent so far in our equipment line item. A lot of it has to do with lighting. Everything has to do with equipment, pretty much breakdown. The biggest thing was the transfers of vehicles, of one equipment set up to another. Like
So
you
this is
said.
for the new
The
vehicle?
radios.
So
for
the
example.
new radio, we might take some equipment out of it, and if another car that we're not gonna use as a frontline car may become an administrative car, it's not gonna be outfitted like a full-blown cruiser. We're gonna pull out all that equipment and salvage it within the fleet. And that's where a lot of the fees come in. And again, the mobile data terminals, those are expensive too. Last year I was able to, last year's cruiser and the year before came out of this line item also. So that was that $5,800 what
The
we spent for
ruggedized, the different
the mobile data, you know what I'm talking about.
laptops that are in the cruisers.
So,
So it is the cost. of
It is really the
Yeah,
cost
so
of
it's
the cruiser.
47,000.
well, true, within it.
I mean,
but
if you're
but
moving
it's
things around.
shared
but
with,
that's- I mean,
it's
it's
shared
not-
within the fleet, not
It's not bad,
specifically
it's just
to
to
the car.
understand what it
But
is.
the lieutenant's very good at swapping whatever we can salvage from one car to another. We do that. If we have to replace something like the MDTs, the mobile data terminals, we have moved those around, but they do wear out too, so we need to replace
So,
those.
but just let me make sure I heard it. So said a different way, if some reason the cruiser comes out of our budget, we take 40 out of the cruiser and 7 out of the equipment. for some good portion of the 7.
Look at,
I'm trying
just
to.
asking, is it 5,000 out of the
Like, how do I
7?
manage a equipment line? It depends,
It would
there's
depend
the
on, like,
variable,
if the
the
computers in the
car.
other cars
It's not
go
just the
down, things
computer,
like
it's
that.
all the stuff within the cars could break and replacements and.
No,
So
that's
it's
what I'm
not just,
saying,
it's
yeah.
not just a new
not
car.
just-
Yeah,
Things in the
but
trunk,
fire
it's
extinguishers
like-
have to be
it's
refilled
like
every
all
time
the
we use them.
things
First aid kits have to
inside.
be refilled.
Um,
It's
so
the-
it's
it's
not-
the
How much
stuff.
of that, how much of that $7,000 is not unique to a new car?
On this one, I would say out of that 7,000, probably maybe 25 to 3,000.
Is-
Because you're
is
looking at
new car-
equipment transfers
Okay.
and maybe paint.
Right, so
Maybe
that's
something needs to be
44.
repaired. So,
4,000 stays.
You gotta remember, if we have 3 or 4 Dodges, and if
Yeah,
the chief goes to another Explorer,
yeah.
there may be some stuff that just won't fit. The light bars, probably, you can't put the same light bar on the Explorer
The
that you have.
cages.
There's not a one-to-one correspondence of what can move.
And it's good for me to know, so I'm thinking 40,000 Cruiser, the thing comes and it has lights on it and it's ready to drive, so I'm trying to, I did not know that it was just for the car that I could drive to work.
But it's
It cost you a lot of money. No, it's not.
They come with basic stuff. You have
I
You'd like
honestly
to
thought
do, you'd
was
like to do that,
The
but no.
40,000 was a fully equipped police cruiser.
But actually, he bought,
I didn't know.
well, no, it's 39, 40, okay. 31.
I'm sorry if I missed this before, but are the Fords all-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Yes, oh yes. Yep. So they have the V6 engines.
Listen, I'm not assuming anything because we all know what happens when you assume. All right.
Okay. Communications. Number 299, oh, shoot, I'm looking at the-
299.
299, okay. This year's budget is, you're requesting 251,258, last year 250, 557. The increase is minimal. So on your wages,
Wages again was contractually driven.
good, and then
And
the COLA, that's
actually,
calculated.
If you skip down to uniforms, you'll notice there's a slight increase in uniforms from 17.
Yeah,
Again, that's contractually tied.
So your overtime is increased, you're budgeting an increase in overtime, even though,
Is that because of the union
Well,
contract?
we have their, yes, we
And
have,
overtime costs more because everyone's making a little bit more. That's
and then that's
essentially.
what,
so it's not it's easier to.
when we put in the new rates,
Yeah.
that's where it is. There's like
They're getting
no,
older, they're going
there's
up in
no
steps.
extra stuff going on that we're increasing because of new programs or whatever. This is
Okay,
just
so
running.
that's just,
Time and a
running
half
the-
costs
Yeah,
more.
communications is pretty flatlined, it's stable.
yeah, it is, okay, okay, and, supplies, as I understood, that's all office supplies, and
Yes.
you're supplying for the,
Police and the
And the-
dispatch, that's all handled in the
Police and
dispatch
dispatch.
center. Yeah.
okay, 5,000, and that looks like a good number. Yep. Anybody have any questions on communications? David?
Uniforms or contract?
Contractual.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Everybody good? Good. So you've given us a lot to digest here. If it's, you think possible next year to have this ahead of time, that would have been really, really good.
Well, the server thing happened, we weren't expecting it, of course, and then the increase of all the stuff that we're doing, and they want to take on all of the technologies and monitor it for us.
Yeah.
Versus us, right now we have things that are not even being monitored. And I can't wait, can we wait for them to break and something's not working?
And
So-
everything's integrated, every system is
Oh, I'm not
self-reliant.
saying- yeah.
on the
I
Yeah,
think
others.
we're-
so that's
We
where,
understand it.
that's where we
For
are.
our cash considerations, is there any benefit to buying it now as opposed to waiting till,
The server?
yeah, July 1st?
I can ask them for hard numbers. I can do that tomorrow, get a specific give me a proposal, if we bought it yesterday, what would it have cost us?
Because that might help us.
And find out if that's any different from waiting until July.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
because
be able to-
that might guide our decision to,
Mhm.
if we can save some money.
And certainly, if you have any specific technological questions, I know they would be happy to
Call you
answer
right
them
up.
for us. I would call them.
They'll charge us
For
for
a
the
modest, they would.
No, they actually-
They've been very
They actually
gracious
came out to a meeting this past Thursday.
to fire the ambulance.
No, that's what they're there for, they're there to help us.
Well, I'm gonna try and summarize where we are, what I think are open still, and you do the same, and we'll just communicate and get some information back to us, so, with capital planning's coming on Thursday, if you wanna come back and be part of that.
Sure,
Okay.
I actually met with them already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you wanna be here for that, I can't remember what time they're coming, late, I think.
One more quick thing, I don't really want to discuss it, so you can just email us, is we talked about cameras at the library
Yes.
and the town hall and the DPW. Somehow the DPW is not on there anymore. I'd just be curious as to what your professional opinion is on whether we need cameras there or not. You don't,
My opinion is don't bite off more than we can chew this year. Let's defer it for another year. Look at the finances.
Wouldn't be any better to buy the third, economies of scale kind of a thing?
No, I think it best be deferred because we don't know what changes are gonna take place down there as well. So I would suggest, I think the libraries, if you had to prioritize, the library's priority one. I did speak to the capital planning about these too.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Library is job one, because that's the safety and security primarily of children. Plus, we've experienced significant property damage over there that we could have solved readily if we had cameras. Town hall would be a secondary concern, and I think if you had to rate them priority-wise, the DPW facility would probably be at the bottom of the list. Not that they're any less important than anyone, but
No.
there's only so many dollars in the bucket, as we all know, so,
The arson that we experienced?
yeah.
Yeah, that was my question too. I mean, someone did try to set fire
They
to
would
that
burn the
building.
cameras, yeah, they would burn the
The
cameras.
cameras would have been,
Yeah, yeah,
probably they
and,
would have been spray painted.
yeah, and technology-wise, to try to route something from down there back would be a little more expensive too, because of the distance, so, there may be some less costly options for down there. So
Okay.
that would be my order of priority, the library first. If you do anything, do the library.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sorry to keep you so late.
No, we're happy to be there.
We did it in one night, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, well,
To
not
an
really.
extent,
Yeah.
it was good.
It was, yeah.
Thank you.
It's fun, a lot of fun.
Okay. We have to do, thanks
Oh, I
very
know
much.
you have a meeting
Thank you
now.
very much.
Yeah, no, we're just gonna make it very short and sweet, because unfortunately, we have another meeting on Thursday, so we can defer a lot of stuff.
Take care.
Thank you, thanks very much. We need to vote on snow and ice, overspend $50,000. You may remember at,
Sticking around,
a couple meetings ago, we voted $100,000 overspend, which is the second $100,000 we voted, for snow and ice. When they asked for the selectmen, an overspend amount from the selectmen was $150,000, so we need to vote on the $50,000.
Make a motion that we approve DPW to overspend snow and ice by an additional $50,000.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to know how much of the $100,000 has been spent.
It's mostly, the original, which one, the second 100? The first
The
100?
latest 100,000.
Donna?
We authorized 100,000 a couple of weeks ago. The selectmen authorized 150, and we're being asked to do that
The
incremental
additional
50.
50.
So I'd like to know of the, I think it's 200,000 that we've already authorized, how much of it's been spent?
I thought I heard from Thursday night that a lot of it had been spent. Harold actually wanted
Do you know?
another 100,000.
I haven't even seen the bills that would have been,
Harold wanted the selectmen asking for 200 when we approved 100. And they said, do you really need the two, well, how about 100?
What happened?
Harold went in originally asking for another 200
For
on
the-
top of the first 100.
Right,
We
and
all
then they
did.
said 150.
And they said, how about 150? He said, might be able to squeak by. So, and that was knowing that storms are coming last week, you know, so I don't know the number. I guess I heard the dire need for 200, so.
I'd like to know where we stand before I authorize another 50.
I'll try and find out for Thursday, before Thursday.
Well, okay, but you've got a motion that's been seconded. So you
I don't
have to
think we have
follow.
a choice. I don't think we have a choice.
Oh, we have to call for them.
It's not gonna make any difference to me to know how much these storms are. Harold's telling us that he needs more money. It's snowing like crazy.
Let me ask a question, has Harold ever,
Might be nice to know, but it doesn't affect my
has
decision.
Harold ever come up with asked for money that he hasn't needed? I mean, do we have a
couple-
Kind of like
history?
the IT guys,
A
right?
couple of years ago,
Be honest,
he asked for
yes.
extra money, and he got it. And when winter was over, he spent the extra money on sand and salt
Right,
For the next year.
That is
for the next year,
Mhm.
which is not what,
the money was for.
which is not what the money was for.
That is a good point. I trust that he's not going to do that again. But let's be clear, this is a formality vote.
Yeah, 'cause it's
He
already
by
been a-
law is allowed to
I
overspend
understand
anyway,
that.
so that's why I don't.
I will, I'll get the information, bring it, Thursdays.
Well, unless you guys want to just vote, I'm probably going to vote no, not knowing the better answer, but if the,
Well, I also based my vote on the fact that the selectmen,
Have
who
already-
essentially are our
already.
boss, is also voted. voted
He's at the
for.
2 with.
you know, you got a motion that's been seconded, you have to deal with
So
that.
we said yes to 100,
Yes,
and then
they went
the selectmen said yes to that 100?
150.
150.
Oh, all right, so,
So my motion was that.
See, it was a 2-week delay. Usually it comes like back to back, and they come in and ask us, and then 2 days later is the selectmen. The selectmen deferred their meeting by 2 weeks, so by the time that Harold got to the selectmen, he was asking for 200, take him back to 150.
okay.
We have to,
They approved the
They
150,
picked the
now the
150.
difference is
We need
we
to
have to do
clean up.
another 50, and then we're all on the same page.
okay, so any more discussion?
Well, I voted yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Okay, the motion passes. I can hand you, it's late. I don't want to stay any longer. How does everybody feel about
I'm
that?
ready to go.
Okay, so we have a meeting on Thursday anyway, we can go over a lot of the other stuff. If you want, I'll give you the advisory worksheet, you can look at it, we can discuss it on, in the minutes. We've all seen, we can discuss that on Thursday. I'm gonna hand out, this is something that, on the Historical Commission that Martha Remington asked us to take a look at. It's a couple more weeks before we're doing that. Please feel free. And let me give you this, and then I'll entertain a. Do I have to hand this? Yes, I do.
Yeah, but I'm joking.
So,
Mr. Informed Citizen over here.
let me see. Please take a look at all the communications from the school committee, because we would like to discuss that.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's right. Oh, very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that helpful or not? I'm sorry, I'm gonna find this, do I have to hand this out before?
I don't even know what it is, Terry.
No, the advisory worksheet, oh, here we go, before we go. And-
Thank you.
Now, I put in 150,000 for snow and ice to be taken from free cash. Let's see that,
I don't
so,
know if we want to do that.
I know, it's there for discussion, so you can all look at it. I mean, if you want to talk about it now, we can. It's 10 minutes to 11.
I don't know if we're going to need to do that.
We may not?
Julie's so crafty at finding money that we'll find plenty of money.
Not if you keep taking away stuff out of the budget and increasing revenues.
I mean, I didn't put 250 in, so.
I just said that just to get that reaction out of you.
Okay, so is there,
It's just part of your charm, isn't it?
is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. So we'll see you all back Thursday night. Thank you.
Thank you.